Hi, this is the September video chat. Um, I guess not too many announcements. I totally screwed up last time saying like this month for August because I was late. I guess in my defense, the Conquest Earth episode ended up going on 20 minutes longer than I thought it would because it's like I thought like okay I'm getting close to the end there, and then it's like it's like I would make progress, then fall again, make progress, then fall. It's like I just didn't know what was going to happen. And I wanted to include that because that sort of ups the suspense a little bit because I never know if I'm getting to the end when I start running into situations like that. Trying to think if there's any other announcements. Not really an announcement, but just out of the blue, I did some research and it looks like it's so yeah, just random game stuff. Does anyone know if there's a port, like an engine port of Terminal Velocity, the game? Because I was thinking, man, that's one I would really like having just a basic engine port, where you can just bump the resolution, maybe have a widescreen, that sort of thing. But because I realized that's one I never finished. And it looks like somebody was working on it, and then like the thread went dead a few years ago, so maybe not. But yeah, I guess I'm working on the next game dungeon in Freeman's Mine. I still need to figure out what I'm doing for the Halloween episode. I don't know yet. Maybe have a couple candidates. And I've been working on actually, hopefully this leads to something, but if not, I still have to try. I've also been working on the kind of push to get the French government to look at the issue of games being destroyed, because I feel like that's the best chance, so I got to give it my best shot. But it's kind of a process involved with that. But let's see. Something is the Steam version not that good? Oh, I don't know. I didn't realize it was on Steam. I imagine the Steam's just the DOS copy, so you can't get the same like resolution bump. Okay, so yeah, so I was saying I have to make the movie. Absolutely, and that's why I've been putting on the website a countdown of when, unfortunately not when the movie's done. That would be great, but too much work for that. But just of when, once I hit the end of that countdown, I'm just not gonna have videos for a while because I'll be doing nothing but the movie. I think that's the only way I can just kind of make, and well, I'll get to that later. Okay, so yeah, I should start answering questions. Okay, well, the top one I never know how to answer. They're saying like, okay, so the top question this time is, how are you, Ross? And it's like, I feel like I'm not horrible. So, but I feel like if I'm just going like into lots of detail as to how I'm doing, it just, I don't know, it always feels kind of pretentious to me. So I try to like dodge questions like that most of the time. I mean, I guess busy. Yeah, busy and not horrible. We'll go with that. Okay, so next question. You're obviously a huge music enthusiast. Have you any particular interest in music videos? Could you recommend some music videos that you find memorable, funny, creepy, trippy, otherwise interesting? Yeah, well, I'm not as experienced in this as I probably should be. I never had MTV growing up. My only exposure to it was visiting a friend's house or something. So it was so unfortunately I never got to see like the bulk of it. And then now that I have access to almost everything, I tend to be more busy than to have time to watch like lots of music videos, because I'm sure there's tons of fantastic ones, but that I'm not aware of or forgot about. But I saw this question, so I made a list of some that have stood out to me. And really, this isn't necessarily the best one, but this is like the first one that popped into my head with this question. But yeah, these are all pretty famous ones. Most of them are older. Twisted Sister, I Wanna Rock. The intro to that video is just, it's a classic. Like if you haven't, like the video itself is okay. It's a great song, but if you haven't seen the intro, you should watch the intro. You know, normally I'm not a fan of overacting, and this does have that, but this is exactly my kind of overacting. The intro with the teacher making him stand up in class. And when I put this on YouTube, I'll try to have links to all these that I'm going to mention. For yeah, but yeah, I Wanna Rock was like the first one that came to my head. Uh, this is another one that's it's not the greatest, but it's just this one's like super low budget. It's actually not that great, but it's funny. It's like a funny video where you weren't necessarily expecting it to go to where it does. Is by Offspring, "Cool to Hate." It's about this guy that where everybody's making fun of him in class, so he goes out and comes back and has revenge, and it's a solid low budget music video. Let's see. Well, these are just kind of fun ones, I guess. Beastie Boys have some good ones. The two that came to mind are "Body Moving" and "Intergalactic." They just have kind of a fun style to it. It's let's see. Okay, well, yeah, there's "Smack My Bitch Up" by Prodigy. That's a fun one. That's one I've rewatched several. I was laughing pretty hard on that. Like, basically what's going on with that one is you're following the entire thing through a first-person perspective of the person going to a pretty wild party and then just getting into a lot of trouble. Like, I laughed pretty hard at that one. And I usually try to keep like the language a little cleaner on these for YouTube or maybe Twitch, I forget. So I can't say the full title, but let's see. By Biting Elbows, Bad MFer, you know, that's not the exact title. This might be like one of the best music videos made. If you've ever seen the movie Hardcore Henry, this is by the same guy, and it's basically like a prelude to Hardcore Henry. I mean, there's just it's a nonstop action sequence, and it's really good action. And again, it's all first-person perspective. Yeah, like the song itself is okay, but like the music video is just amazing. Like, again, if you like Hardcore Henry, you should watch, and you haven't seen that, you should watch that like immediately after this. I mean, this one isn't. These aren't that great, but I just kind of like them. When I did my Beavis and Butthead spree, where I caught up on like every Beavis and Butthead episode, again, I took notes of several of them that I liked, and one of them was by Suicidal Tendencies, "Send Me Your Money." This is one where like the music video is just okay. It's funny, but like the singer brings like his A game to it in terms of energy. You know, he's just kind of really spazzing out with it. I always appreciate that. Let's see. Yeah, these are, well, actually Weird Al tends to have pretty good music videos, and again, the first one that popped in my head was actually an animated one, or I'll Sue Ya, where he's basically spoofing Rage Against the Machine, and it's pretty good. Yeah, well, Weird Al has a lot of good ones. So like Amish Paradise I like that one a lot. Yeah, and from Amish Paradise, that also made me remember. This is another one that's just like okay, and I just kind of like it. Fantastic Voyage by Coolio. That one's fun because it's basically just him driving to the beach, and then like 100 people walk out of the trunk of his car, and that's basically the rest of the video. And they basically starts a party just from people walking out of his car. Trying to think of some others. So yeah, you also have Meat Sandwich by GWAR. That one's kind of like a typical sort of metal video, but the part that stands out to me is that at one point, like, you know, they're having this kind of party or barbecue, and at one point it all stops and like the court opens up and it becomes like the lead singer versus Jesus against a basketball game. So they have a one-off like basketball game in the middle of it, and the GWAR lead just totally wins, and just at one point he scores the winning shot and he knocks Jesus down on the ground like in the process, and then you see Jesus out of the ground, and then you see him, like he holds. You see the singer hold down his hand to like give him a hand up, and Jesus reaches up, and then goes like, "Oh!" and then like he pulls back and fakes him out. And everybody starts laughing. It was just funny, you know. So yeah, I guess I tend to like the funny music videos the most. I'm trying to remember some, and there's one I honestly forgot the name of it or the band and everything, but it's like this party that just gets like really wild. Like they're like breaking a lot of things, but if it might have been like another 80s or 90s one again. But yeah, so not the best list, but there's some good picks in there. If you haven't, yeah, and then yeah, again, the chat is welcome to chime in on suggestions. I'm trying to see, trying to remember if there were any others. I mean, again, I'm sure there's a lot of great ones that trump most of these on these. The one by Biting Elbows, that one's really good though. But it's just again, a whole lot of the music I've listened to over the years have been soundtracks, and those typically don't get music videos. So, but yeah, I'm afraid I don't have like the greatest list for you on that. But maybe the chat can chime in on some more. Yeah, if somebody wants to make like a top 10 of music videos, I should probably see if I haven't, then I could look into that. But one's not, because one's where you're really judging the video, because there's all kinds of fantastic music out there, but a whole lot of times like the best songs don't necessarily have the best videos to go with them. Okay, so yeah, I shouldn't. Next question. What is the most addicted you've ever been to a game? Well, I'm not sure exactly, but I can remember a few that got me. I think my earliest one, an example, you could probably call it addiction, where like when I was a kid, sometimes like I would have a deal with my parents where if I did like an hour of chores, I could earn like an hour of like computer game time. So, and I remember I had some stored up, and I started playing Tetris, and I ended up burning through all of it that day. And I remember even as a kid thinking, I didn't mean to do that. Like Tetris wasn't like so good that it was worth burning all my time on. I would rather have burned it on something like Commander Keen or like, you know, well, Terminal Velocity is probably later, but you know, some sort of like adventure or action game that, you know, would probably have been more impressive. But I remember just like I just kept playing Tetris, and like, and then by the end of the day, I burned up all my time that I saved up, and I remember being annoyed with myself about that, because I knew then I could have done better. I could have done better than. I mean, it was fun, but it wasn't like I shouldn't have spent that much time on it. Some others I remember. This isn't even my favorite game. It's just that like, it's like I don't know what. It's like I remember not knowing what happened to the time was Space Rangers. That's another one that just like it got addictive, and I just kept going, and I was like, how did I lose this much time to this game? Let's see. Yeah, I think this is before Nyet 3, before that came out. I mean, I was a kid, so I mean, not for Space Rangers. I was an adult by then. Let's see. Well, actually, one that sucked me in, it was only for about 2 or 3 days, but after that, it lost a lot of the punch. But playing World of Warcraft on an emulator. So it was really just me playing single-player World of Warcraft by myself. But, you know, I think that was like the first MMO I'd really tried, and yeah, it was I could see how addictive it was initially, and then like as the grind started creeping in, I was like, okay, yeah, this is the the payoff versus the time I'm investing the ratio is becoming a lot worse now. So, and then like I did some admin sheets to make up the difference, and that bought me more time, but then that got kind of used to that. So, but yeah, I remember for the first 2 or 3 days, it was very addictive. So, trying to think of some others that are like just. Well, Team Fortress Classic actually. I enjoy when I could get good servers. Like I really enjoyed the attack and defend mode, like on Dust Bowl especially, or Warpath. I really enjoyed that game mode. That I think if you haven't done like online multiplayer before, I mean I had done it before, but that mode in particular clicked with me. Then that can be pretty addictive if you haven't done it. I think the first online multiplayer game I did was Jedi Knight. I mean, because by then I finally had, and even then I was like on a 56K modem. But yeah, I mean, for Team Fortress Classic, you could probably substitute that in with other games and have a similar addiction level for it. Well, I enjoyed Zombie Panic Source a lot when I could find the right servers for it. I particularly enjoyed the Barnsdale level, or what was no Barnsdale's name of the place on the radio. I forget the actual name of the map. Despite playing it like 100 times or something. Oh wow! Somebody's apparently Blade from Sin has a cameo. Was not expecting that. I'll have to look into that after this chat. So he's saying, have you ever beaten the game in one sitting? Yeah, definitely smaller ones. I'd have to think about like what the longest one I've done is. But yeah, shorter games. That's happened frequently. Well, I did it on stream. Which one? American Werewolf in L.A. I beat that all in one sitting. So, let's see. I know there's others, but it's like I don't always keep track of it. Yeah, Puzzle Agent. I beat that in one. I wasn't even planning to. Well, that's cool. I'd love more. I'd love more of the game, Sin. I was really disappointed those episodes didn't keep coming. I mean, there was room for improvement, but it was promising, with Sin episodes. I'm trying to. I don't know if I'd call it addiction. Like I was thinking for Quake 3 and Unreal Tournament 2004, I played a lot of those, but I would kind of use those as sort of like downtime in between doing other stuff. Those usually weren't ones like where I couldn't put it down. So it's just because with games like that, when you hit the end of the round, that's like a natural stopping off point, and you can kind of check in your brain. It's like, well, do I really want to play another one? That's like so. I mean, sometimes they do, but it's like there's more of an investment with it, and there's like natural jumping off points. Okay, well, just because I'm seeing the question, have you played the Gothic series much? I played Gothic 1 through 3. I still need to play Arcania and, well, I haven't played the Gothic 2 expansion. I haven't played the Gothic 3 expansion. I want to say there was another newer Gothic I forgot about. Okay, so should get to more of the voted on questions. I'll try to get more of the live ones at the end. What was your biggest effed up moment while working on a computer? Well, one that definitely stands out to me when I had a copy of, I think it was like Norton Utilities or Norton something, and they had an optimization that they were claiming to optimize the system. So I figured, okay, why not? I'll see it. Maybe I can get the boot faster or run things a little smoother once Windows is booted up. So I ran it, and I think this was during Windows XP days, and I let it do what it wanted. Actually, it might have been 98. 98 or XP. I'm not sure. And after I let it run and do everything, all these optimizations, I think I made a disk image just in case. And I turned it on again, and then I couldn't boot in the Windows. And then I found out it gave me some errors. And I found out it formatted the C drive into FAT12 format, which I didn't even realize existed. I think like the maximum size it can handle is like 32 megabytes for the drive. Here, FAT12 format. Let's see. Like I never even seen that before, FAT12. And so, yeah, that made me never want to use anything by Norton again. But that was... I had a friend of mine in high school who managed to plug in, I guess it was SD RAM at the time. He managed to plug it in backwards and turn it on, and he said it started smoking. And the thing about that, he must have really had to like muscle it in there, because that's supposed to be idiot-proof in the sense that you can only plug it in one way into the RAM slot. But it might have been one of those where like you can only plug it in one way, but there's like a notch in the center, and it might have been a little bit over here. But if you have it reversed, it might be over here. So maybe it looked like close enough to him. I remember we gave him, we laughed at him for that when he told us. I think he wrecked the motherboard. He somehow managed to plug in the RAM backwards. So, yeah, I mean, it's... Okay, well, just because I'm noticing questions again, they're asking if I've seen the project about the Roth GUI system in GitHub. No, I think somebody may have mentioned it, but well, there's more to it than that. I think they're just... Well, I'll talk more about that when I do the follow-up. I'll take a good look at it before I make the follow-up. How about that? But yeah, that's the one that really stood out to me, is that it was claiming to optimize the system and formatted the C drive in FAT12 format. So, let's see. I mean, I spilled water on my system a few years ago. I mean, yeah, I've stopped having water and food in here since. Yeah, I posted photos of that on the website. I got lucky though. I think that only messed up the fan actually. So I think the motherboard was okay after that, if I recall. I'm not sure, but it definitely didn't fry as much as it could have. This is on a case that had like the vents at the top. Yeah, that was not good, but yeah. So I think I ended up having to replace the heatsink, but like the motherboard and the video card and anything it might have hit was still okay. Let's see. They're saying they're blown away by how quickly AI image generation entered the mainstream. Yeah, it happened. Yeah, that progress is pretty fast. I'm on the waiting list now, I guess for DALL-E 2. I'm not too picky on which one. I just want one of them that can do decent outpainting. Because I want to apply it. If it makes you feel any better, I have like this gigantic collection of wallpapers I've been amassing. And those are all by real artists, except I want to extend them to ultra wide. So I want the AI to kind of enhance what the real artists are doing. So, yeah, they're saying, I've heard examples of it doing music. They know that it writes a lot of news articles. I can believe that. What other stuff do you foresee AI coming to the fore in? I'm not sure. I mean, I'm keeping fingers crossed that on my Dream software that it'll be able, so that if you have footage from a game, it's gonna do a pretty decent job of trying to recreate that environment, of the map that you're seeing. And it looks like could happen. I mentioned I put it on Twitter. I think I mentioned in one of the previous video chats the City Synth demonstration I saw, which that's basically what they did. They just recorded footage of somebody driving through the city, and then had the AI kind of produce it from like 2D footage, and it looked quite decent. And then they added additional enhancements to it, like using the Unreal Engine. And I think they were discussing about having it possibly roll into the main Unreal Engine, which would be amazing. I'm keeping my fingers crossed on that because, look, that'll lessen the sting of seeing games destroyed if I can just extract the whole damn map and have it be in something like Unreal where it can be modded and you can do what you want with it. I mean, that's not the same as saving the game, but between that and recording playthroughs, that gets you a lot, you know. So it's not. So we have incomplete destruction then. So yeah, and maybe there'll be a competitor for that too. I'm really looking forward to what comes out of it. There's probably all kinds of things I haven't even thought of that it's being applied for. Oh, I remembered something else I want from AI. This is much more minor, but I do want this. I want an AI that can remove laugh tracks. Because there's some sitcoms I'm interested in, but I really hate laugh tracks. I don't know, it just bugs me. I think because it's the fakeness of it, because like if you're in with like a real audience watching a comedy, they're gonna laugh, but they're probably gonna laugh like 90% less than a laugh track will. Like they're only gonna laugh at like the genuinely funny stuff, or maybe like one or two people will laugh at like the weaker jokes. So and the thing is, it would have a bonus because I've seen some edits on YouTube where here I should make notes on this, where they took episodes of. I never watched the show. I wasn't really interested in it, but they took an episode of Friends, and they like, or not an episode, but they took a scene from it, and they just did good sound editing to try and remove all the laugh tracks as the laughter as they could, and it's surreal. Like you watch it, and they just have like these awkward pauses, and I'm someone who likes surreal comedy, so I think that might enhance things because. There's plenty of Seinfeld episodes I haven't seen. Sure, I'd love to apply that to something like Seinfeld, so there'll be just awkward pauses all over the place. That's all right. I wouldn't mind that. Hogan's Heroes is another show I like. I wouldn't mind removing the laugh tracks, you know. So it's let's see. Okay, just because I noticed the question, they were asking if I played Carmageddon, the Death Race 2000. Oh, is that one 3? Or is that the... Yeah, I didn't really get into that one. I don't know. They're saying it's the worst of the series. Well, maybe, but like the atmosphere, like 1, 2, and max damage, or whatever they're calling the newest one. I like the atmosphere better on those. I didn't really like 3. So yeah, I'm sorry, I'm with the crowd on that one. Maybe I didn't play the right maps. Maybe I gave up on it too early. I could look into it again. But yeah, for AI, oh yeah, they're also saying it's an exciting, terrifying area. I'm not terrified by it. I guess here's the thing. I'm only seeing positive, except it will accelerate bad things we were doing already. So, like, I think AI is a tool. In fact, I think it's kind of, okay, yeah, here, I'll talk about this. I think it is kind of ludicrous how many tech moguls I've seen talking about how they're terrified of AI. And like, my response to that is always, it's like, yeah, can you imagine what sort of decisions a cold, unfeeling AI would make instead of a high-functioning sociopath, you know? Like, because, I mean, if you like look at, because AI probably will increase things like automation and loss of jobs, but that's something that was happening before AI ever came around. However, it will accelerate that, and it just sort of shines a light on problems we need to fix. Or I've heard of like AI using algorithms for hiring people, you know, so it's like there's no human involved. They're just looking at buzzwords and credentials. Well, what do you think HR does for a lot of major corporations? They may not have been AI, but they were just probably using check boxes of things they were using for and making it like this really soulless process that might not take into account like the skill level of the applicant at all. So it's just sort of amplifying things we are already doing. And so, however, I have heard a conspiracy theory, which I think has some merit as to why, when I say tech moguls, I think I've heard, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, I think was it one of the co-founders of Google. There's some others where they're all talking about how they're like terrified of AI. It's just like, what? I think, what? Yes, as I was saying, AI already does that. Humans don't look at your resume. Well, it's like before they were using AI, they were kind of turning it into this whole process that might not give great results anyway. AI just makes it more efficient. Oh yeah, well with image stuff, like artists are worried about losing their jobs. And I realized this is a pretty similar analogy with art, with it threatening artist jobs to photography when that came along. Because before photography, if you wanted an accurate image, you needed an artist to kind of do their best job at like kind of recording what you were seeing. And photography opened up the option for a lot of people who didn't really care about the artistic element of it, and they just wanted a photo of what was happening, or a representation of it, rather. And I'm thinking it's probably similar for what's happening with AI. Like if you're trying to make, if you have really specific needs, you're probably still going to need an artist. But if you just need a picture of like a horse in a field or something, then yeah, it might replace the need for artists at that level. So that probably is going to encroach on them. But again, just let's say AI didn't come along, just competition in general would probably have been a threat for artists. I mean, maybe not necessarily of like getting some work, but maybe getting enough to support themselves. In fact, I even said as much in that Robot Jobs video where, the phrase starving artist goes way back. So it's, yeah, I mean, it varies. It's going to replace some things, I think, not others. But, yeah, so what I was getting back, okay, so the conspiracy theory, yeah, sorry to jump around a bunch like this. This is why I'm not a great multitasker. The conspiracy theory I've heard that makes some sense to me is as to why all these tech moguls are saying this, because it's like, why? I don't get solid answers as to like why they're afraid of it, unless they're actually talking about like a Terminator scenario, Skynet, where they're afraid of the AI becoming self-aware and taking over. Look, I still stand by what I said in the Robot Jobs video. I don't think that's going to happen in my lifetime. It's not because of lack of processing power. It's just because of we don't even understand what consciousness is. So let's say an AI could stumble upon consciousness, like the formula for it, and since we don't know what it is and the AI doesn't know what it is either, it just throws that out and keeps looking. So it would be like looking for a needle in a haystack where you don't know what a needle is, and this particular needle looks like another piece of hay to you. You're never going to find it. So it's, even if you can process it much, much faster, if you still don't know what it is you're looking for, and the AI doesn't either, you're not going to find it. So, and it's incredibly complex, too, the concept of consciousness. So I think that is maybe, for some of them, maybe they're watching too many movies, or they just don't understand their own product that well, for some of them. However, the conspiracy theory, which is that they know that AI is not really a threat. However, if they can hype it up as a threat, then maybe they can get legislation passed on this so that you need a license to develop an AI like safely, you know, so some guy, maybe they make a department and some representative comes and, or a regulator comes and looks at the code and says, yep, this one's not going to take over the world. Okay, you can keep developing it. And what that will do is that if they can stoke enough fear over it, that could shut out the smaller players, because then you need a license to develop an AI, because they've stoked the risk that they've stoked fears enough among representatives who don't know anything about AI that, oh, this could be dangerous. We can't let the public, you know, develop this stuff unregulated. And so then if you need a license to get it, that could restrict the number of players a lot more and keep all the advantages to AI in-house for companies like Facebook or Google or Tesla or whatever, stuff like that. So that could be a way of them kind of retaining more power by having a fake, by stoking fake fears of it. So it's like, yeah, that could actually make sense for them to do that if their goal is to just, you know, build the company even more and grab even more power. If you can shut out the competition to just a few big players and you don't have to worry about anybody coding in an attic or something and coming up with like really good machine learning that they have to compete with, then it'd still be very dishonest, but that would have a logic to them doing that. Okay, Ross, you should listen to a 5-hour interview with Carmack and the Lex Freeman podcast where he comments stuff like this. Oh, okay, maybe I'll check that out. I probably won't listen to it all at once, but I could listen to that while I exercise or something. Yeah, I put a hell of a lot more stock into what Carmack says about computer technology than any tech CEO out there. Any. Like, I feel like Carmack is far more likely to have an educated take on these things. So. Yeah, somebody's saying that the AI controlling weapons of mass destruction could be a real danger. Yes, absolutely. I mean, I mentioned that in the robot jobs. I don't think we should have an AI in control of nuclear weapons. Because it's not that the AI would do a bad job, it's that the AI would blindly follow orders. Whereas if you told a soldier, all right, we need to nuke the east coast of this country, they might be like, sir? Like, yeah, in fact, I think we avoided an Armageddon. Might have been like the 80s, maybe more than once, actually. I think there was an example in like the 80s or during the Cold War where the missile system mistook a flock of geese or the radar system mistook a flock of geese for like incoming missiles, and like there might have been orders for them to return fire, or else that was the protocol, but like the soldier in charge like wanted an authentication of it. So yeah, somebody's saying they know of at least 3 multiple. I'm sure there's more, but there's one that involved a flock of birds. That's all it was just a flock of birds. Yeah, if you've ever seen the movie Crimson Tide, it deals with the same sort of scenario. So you kind of want soldiers who have a conscience and do not want to start nuclear Armageddon, whereas an AI is just like, all right, this meets the conditions for firing, fire. Like, so it's not that the AI wants to take over the world, it's just that the people who have set it up or were too reckless. You know, that could happen. So yeah, I'm with you on that. We don't, and even then, it's not really the AI's fault. It's that we put things in charge of an AI that are way too dangerous for an AI to handle. not because the AI would do a bad job, but because we're giving it's because we have a screwed up structure and the AI would follow stupid orders. Whereas a human, you have a much higher chance of it not following a very stupid and dangerous order, even if to their detriment, because they have a conscience on this. But that's the only scenario I could think of because, again, in like the business world, I can't think of anything like an AI would do that we're not doing already. It's just an AI might do a better job of it, which could be or more thorough. So I don't know, or maybe they're worried the AI would see their jobs as irrelevant or something. I don't know. I'll definitely check out that Carmack interview on AI. Because again, I'll trust Carmack's take any day of the week on technology and software over any tech CEO on the planet. It's not that I think. Well, I mean, I think Carmack is a genius with that thing, but it's not. It's not because I think he's like the greatest genius of all time. It's that I have so much lower opinion of the things that comes out of tech CEOs' mouths than what Carmack talks on. So I would also trust like a very competent AI programmer for that sort of thing. So, but yeah, I mean I guess there are concerns about privacy and like but that's stuff that, again, that's another example of something an AI can do a much better job on than that we were doing anyway. I mean, before we had AI analysis, when you went to a website, they were collecting, a lot of companies were collecting all the information they could get off of you. Like, all right, this person comes from this location based on their browsing history. Like, they're probably like in this age range. They're probably male, that sort of thing. So they were collecting that. It's just that AI is way better at it and they can maybe have facial recognition or that sort of thing. So it's just amplifying what we were doing already for the most part, in my opinion. And for me, someone who's real big on multimedia and games, games, I can only imagine how that could affect games. It could be fantastic. But yeah, I was going to say for multimedia and gaming, I'm seeing just so much positive in terms of it, like far outweighing any negative. And any negatives that are unique to AI. It's not that AI doesn't shine a light. The problems AI is going to exacerbate are ones we need to deal with anyway. Like again, not enough jobs to go around due to automation, and people still need a way to support themselves. Well, that's a problem that was, increasing anyway. AI is just speeding it up. But yeah, I bet we could have way better like AI from enemies that's fun. Like one of the famous examples is in Fear. Like the way the troops would behave in that was fantastic. I bet you could have similar things like that, or you could have NPCs with really smart responses. So depending on your action, imagine playing an RPG where you do all sorts of things and you have really smart reactions from your NPCs depending on what you did. It's just like, what are you doing chasing all those chickens around? Or it's just like, oh, you're weird. Like, and these could be things that the programmers never even accounted for. I could see AI having that. I bet it could. I mean, it won't be 100%, but it could be pretty good. Like so it, or actually, Sin Episodes had the thing where the amount of the enemies react to how you're playing. So again, if you get a bunch of headshots, they're wearing more helmets, and I bet you could have all kinds of things like that. So if you're, let's see, if you're doing a lot of melee combat, they could maybe like try to snipe you more, but that might not be as fun. So if you want something more fun and you're doing a lot of melee combat, then you start seeing like guys who are like good at martial arts coming after you to respond to that, to give you more of a challenge. Yeah, you could. Oh, okay, I didn't know about this. They're saying in Fable where you chase chickens and get called Chicken Chaser. I didn't know that in Fable. I guess I didn't chase enough chickens when I played it. Yeah, they're saying didn't Left 4 Dead have AI called the director? Yeah, except you could have it. You could have it on such a level that it would just be night and day compared to what we've had in the past. I could absolutely see that happening, where or maybe it finds that you like certain levels more, and then yeah. Imagine this: like you're playing a platformer or something like Sonic, and it detects that okay, you seem to like the levels with lots of vegetation or during the day more than the city levels. So you just keep going, and you just get more levels that are like in the forest or something rather than the city, and you could have another play. Yes, you could have really smart procedural generation. There are so many possibilities for, I mean, especially in gaming, but all kinds of things that I see. I'm incredibly positive about AI. Like I think it's just going to open up all kinds of doors in a lot of great ways, especially for multimedia and gaming. It's just the main, yeah. So the main downsides are things we need to deal with anyway, and hopefully AI will shine more of a light on that, or possible nuclear Armageddon, in which case just don't handle final control over missiles to AI, you know? So AI would not, don't give launch authorization to AI. I mean, AI would make sense if you had like an air-to-air missile and you want, like for tracking that, yeah, AI would make a lot of sense. But, you know, keep the launch authorization to humans, I guess. Because we need the soldiers who are willing to say that they're not willing to nuke another country. Like, okay, so more questions. Ross, recently I've noticed some people on curse forums talk about being worried over the quality of your videos, such as them focusing on more negative aspects of a game instead of you just enjoying your time doing them, or focusing on subjects, games that are too niche and sometimes not worth the effort covering. This is something akin to what I call quality discourse, a phenomena that I've become aware of that involves content creators going on for a long time where the quality can downgrade in some form or another. If you yourself have been aware of this, how do you think this can be alleviated? Well, I'd say there's a couple aspects of this. The first is, I don't think you should judge a video maybe some people will, but judge a video by how much I personally am enjoying it. You should judge it by how much you enjoy it. I'm making the videos for you guys, you know, or the audience, you know. So if I have to look, any actor will tell you like they're willing to suffer if it means that, you know, the end result is that much better. I mean, with to a degree, obviously not. You know, they're willing to put up with some pain and discomfort if that results in a better performance. So, you know, that's what it's about. I mean, that said, yeah, there is room for improvement. Like I think in the past couple of videos, maybe I could have worked in a few more jokes, or maybe I should have trimmed them down a little more, edited them. But I mean, I don't think it was like I completely dropped the ball and it's like not even worth watching. The chat. Well, I'll ask the chat now. I mean, like, do you guys feel it's been that way for the past few game dungeons? I mean, if you didn't like one, judge the last half a dozen or something like that. Or it's keeping like similar quality, but maybe it could use a boost in different areas or something like that. One person likes. I'm gonna get a biased sampling from the chat. However, if it was true and I was like really dropping the ball on the videos, I would probably see like a much more noticeable decline on the views. So if I got like a third as many views, I'd be like, whoa, what happened here? And sometimes that happens anyway if I'm covering an obscure game. So yeah, like I think Aida's Strange Christmas that didn't get as many views. And I can see that. Like some people aren't interested in that kind of game, or it's like it looks too rough for them. And I actually would be like that with Mystery Science Theater 3000. I mean, that's a great show. But like sometimes the movies were so bad that it was kind of rough to even watch that episode, even with them trying their hardest. And the best were ones that like the movie itself they were watching had like, it was like a little more cheesy and over the top, and like it was still had some fun elements to it as opposed to just being miserable. So it can vary on the game too. I'm aware of things. I'm usually aware if it didn't come out quite as well, and I try to think of like, well, what I could have done more next time. And like I think like my analysis of Conquest Earth would be that it probably would have been better if I could have worked in some more jokes, and I maybe could have cut down the time some more, but I wasn't exactly sure where. But I mean, that said, sometimes it's luck of the draw too, because I actually don't go into the games thinking they're going to be god awful. I mean, maybe there's like one or two exceptions I could think of. It's just that, like, well, with Conquest Earth, I legitimately went into that game thinking like, okay, this time I'm going to finish it. And I remembered it being quirky. I remember like there being like some, like it needed some quality of life help. But I thought, well, okay, well this time I can just kind of tough through that, and like just get it done and make a video out of it. And I get in there, and it's like, this campaign mode is broken. This isn't just like quirky. This is broken, like this campaign mode. And then, like, I didn't remember like just how awful it was playing through the fog. So it's like if things go wrong, like yeah, I'm gonna dock it. I'm gonna show that if it's like if there's some entertainment value to it. I mean, so it's like. And I try to look at this from my perspective because I remember, yeah, actually I should watch more of this. There was a series a while back called Until We Win. And in it, the host, he was just playing like the hardest video games he could. And he was giving tips on how to beat them. And like, I didn't care about the tips, but there was something just sort of captivating. Like, and you could tell some of these games were just grinding him down. Like it was, and there was something like oddly captivating about that for me. Cause I'm just sort of like watching this guy's suffering, but at the same time, it's like, I'm seeing, you're seeing two things. You're seeing one, like the toll this is having on the person, which could kind of have like a dark comedic value to it. Cause it's like, man, like, I don't want to think about what it's doing to this. And the other half, you can see how much crap this game is throwing at you that it's almost like sometimes you almost can't believe it. It's just like, wow, this game is pulling that now. Like after all this game is trying to do that to the player. So there's a certain fascination to it. So if that ends up happening in the course of Game Dungeon, I want to show it, I mean, I do have limits, but I mean, what I'm hoping for is to just have some entertainment value out of the finished thing. So again, if I have to suffer through some of it to get there, I'll do that. Sometimes it's not worth it. Sometimes I'll just realize that, no, this is a bridge too far. But, well, it's like in Conquest Earth, like I really did, I did not want to play through that entire campaign, having to slowly clear out the fog every single level, then figure out what the exploit is for that level, if there even is one. And then because that would just take days and days to do that. Not that I'm against playing a game that takes days and days, but the game has to have a lot more going for it if it's going to make me do that. However, I can play the last level. I can suffer through one level like this, and there's a cheat code that gets me there. Fine, let's do it. And then things happen there. Like I saw the tanks just stopping on nothing. On like an open field, it's just they were stopping on nothing. They just bump against each other. Up, that's it. Can't move. Like, I actually spent more time than I should have trying to find that ATV video because I'd seen that a while back. And man, that one that one really stood out in my memory because, yeah, if you watch that ATV video, they're doing stunts, but they're pulling off the stunts, but then the guy just drives straight into the wheels of the other one. It's like what was happening in the game. It's like the tanks are just driving against each other and then they just come to a stop. I mean, that was like the most preventable accident in the world that they did. They just don't drive into the wheels of your buddy next to you. Like, I mean, they were doing the wheelies and pulling those off fine, but like, because a wheelie is more of like, there's a certain amount of risk and skill involved. It can go well or it can backfire. This was just, it wasn't even a stunt. It was just a totally preventable wreck. Yeah, so it says the perfect representation with the tanks. Yeah, they're just driving right into each other with the sides of the wheels. Yeah, because, stunts can go wrong. I mean, but that's part of the thrill of the stunt is that it can be dangerous and risky, but that makes it that much more impressive when you pull it off. So, but there's such a thing as like really stupid stunts too. Like, and then that one wasn't even a stunt. It was. None of that was on purpose. So, but yeah, so that's one aspect of it. And also, not every game's gonna be equal. Some, like, I can't always pull off something like Bit Bop 2 or the Cave Story, or not Cave Story, the Cave World Saga, where I'm just pulling stuff that you haven't seen. And look, that's just blind luck when stuff like that happens. That said, the next episode you're gonna get a nice bonus. You're gonna get a nice bonus with the next episode. Like kind of like how with Sin, I was able to dredge up some CD quality audio or with Rama. It's not gonna be the music though. But yeah, no, I mean I'll put and hey, this is just a coincidence, but the next game dungeon, this is a game I'm a fan of. This is a good game on the next game dungeon. So it's gonna be a bit of a spoiler. It's gonna be a little bit like Dungeon Siege in the sense that it makes me wonder, why does this not have a spiritual successor to it? It's not like Dungeon Siege at all in terms of gameplay or the setting, but why aren't there like a dozen Dungeon Siege clones? Is what I want, and I'm wondering why aren't there just a dozen clones of this game? So it's another game like that, and you're gonna get a very nice bonus. I'll say it if you're interested in this game. This is one it was totally worth delaying, and you'll find out why. But yeah, don't judge it by whether I'm enjoying it or not. I think some people, like, they maybe empathize too much with the host or something. So if they're in distress, they're kind of in distress. I'm not like that. I mean, I'm like that if there's like real harm being done, then yeah, that'll shock me, and I don't want that. But if it's just putting yourself through a bad video game, you only have yourself to blame for that, and the damage isn't too high. So. Again, I enjoyed watching until we win. So, because I would just kind of just watch it in just fascination. So, okay, so there's that element of it. And, okay, now I am a little concerned about what they're talking about, the quality decline. I am a little concerned about that for Freeman's Mind, but I'll try to keep it going the best I can. But I get kind of worried that because there's so many similar situations I have to respond to. Like, if I'm being shot at, I mean, there's only so many ways to react to that. And I keep trying to keep it fresh, but it's more limiting. It's more limiting. So I am concerned about that. And the final thing I want to say on this is, even if it does decline a bit, I feel like, look, I don't care if I'm digging my own grave on this. I'm 100% committed. I feel like the movie's going to make up for everything. So if it's like, oh, well, he had a few episodes that weren't as good, but oh my God, I've seen the movie, now I get why he was so obsessed with it. So I feel like I think people will understand. And if some of the quality gets diverted, in the comments last time, somebody was saying that they thought apparently the Angry Video Game Nerd was putting a lot of stock into the movie and thought it was going to make up for some of the stuff. Look, with 100% due respect to James Rolfe, I think he's made a ton of fantastic videos. The Angry Video Game Nerd movie, while it had some very good elements, it didn't do a lot for me. I felt like it felt kind of flat to me. I 100% prefer my script over the Angry Video Game Nerd movie, okay? So, look, writing is so incredibly important for the quality of a movie. I will watch a movie with really rough production quality but great writing any day over a polished, big budget Hollywood movie with a terrible script. So writing is just, so I'm taking that part very seriously with the quality of the movie. If I don't have a good script, I don't have anything, is the way I view at it. So I'm going through each scene over and over and thinking okay, well, how does this flow by the time we're at this point in the movie? It's like, okay, or is this funny or is this engaging? It's like, would this make me want to watch it? I'm really gonna go through that with I'm really gonna, it's gonna have a lot of polish. And in fact, I'm still a little concerned about my ending though. I think my ending's not bad, but it's I'm just having trouble thinking of a better one. So I'm going over that a lot, but the rest of it, I'm really happy with how it's gonna play out. Okay, somebody's saying he wrote the script to do a lot of effects work and stuff he always wanted to do instead of actually making characters interesting or funny. Yeah, that's totally. I'm looking at this from the perspective of, are you interested in the plot and the events that are happening? Do you care about what happens to the characters? Is it funny? Or is it it's a comedy adventure, so are the adventure parts exciting? Are they well paced? I don't want to have nothing but action scene after action scene and just have people get numb to it. Or do people care about the context? So I'm making the sort of movie I personally would want to watch. So it's, I'm just kind of going with well, what would make a fun, funny, exciting movie? And then I'm kind of figure out more of the logistics of it in 3D and everything. So, in fact, some effects I'm a little worried about, but I'll do so. I'm doing the script first, the effects second, for figure out how it's gonna work. So, okay, so it should look at more questions. But yeah, by the way, you feel free, if you think I'm slipping on the episodes, you can let me know too, because I don't, well, you guys did that for Moon Gaming. You guys, the general consensus, some people are more, you're going to get a variety of feedback on no matter what you do. But the general consensus on Moon Gaming is people didn't like this, and it sounds like people would rather just wait longer for something like Game Dungeon or Freeman's Mind than have faster release of something like Moon Gaming. And so, yeah, I more or less killed it off because of that. So I mean, if it's something put it like this, there are some ideas that you're not going to dissuade me on that I think they're good, and I'm just going to do them regardless. And the movie is like that. So, however, there's others where it's like, okay, well, I could work on this or I could work on this. And it's not a huge problem for me either way, and I'm totally open to feedback on that. So, and plus, with Game Dungeon, it varies. You know, sometimes I've heard people say like their favorite episodes are ones I thought, oh, I should have done a better job on that one. Like, and I'm just surprised. So it seems like me jumping around from game to game helps round it out a bit. You know, so if you only like these kinds of episodes or these kinds of games, well, eventually something's going to come up that you like. So, all right, I'm going to go through more of the submitted questions. What is your favorite place in Poland? Well, I haven't seen all of it, but I have visited Warsaw before, and we got lucky. There was a friend of Magda's there that was able to give us kind of a mini tour of it. I have to say, like, my favorite location I've seen was the University Library in Warsaw, where it's awesome. Like, it looks like something out of a computer game, like one of these sort of like high fantasy settings where they had like vines all over it, and I think a lot of it was made out of copper, but it had rusted green, and it created this kind of interesting effect. Like the architecture, if you're into architecture, you should definitely take a look at that. Like it was odd, but very cool. It's like something you might expect out of like a video game level where they want to loop you all around. Very multi-layered with it. And on the top, there's like this whole garden area that was kind of extensive that makes me think of, I don't know, like futuristic areas that were neat, that look kind of neat and like kind of clean and polished. So it just had really unique architecture to it that I haven't seen anything like it really before. It had a mix. Yeah, okay. What it reminded me of was like a mix of like some sort of futuristic utopian area and maybe like something like the Lord's Labyrinth from Path of Exile. It was like a mix of those two. So, and then they had like lots of art on display too. So I'd say that was probably my favorite area of all the places I've visited in Poland. Like it was pretty neat. So I remember there was I think it was the downtown area. I don't know. I just sort of walked around all over, but there's parts of Warsaw too that had like lots of like the sort of Roman or Greek style statues all over the place. And I think it was like sort of, or it might have been when we were visiting. It might have been like a holiday that, we were there to get my passport renewed. But while we were there, I think they closed off this section that was available. They closed off the section from cars. So there was like lots of like neat architecture going on there. I might recognize it if I saw it again, but I do not know about Réseau from Montreal or Riso. Okay. And this just made me think, here's some dream game material, which I'm sure I've mentioned it before, but you know how Microsoft Flight Simulator, they've modeled like the entire Earth. That's another game that uses AI. They use AI to generate. They didn't handcraft every single building in the game. What they did is they did some of the more populous areas, and they, for everything else, they used AI to like look at the satellite maps and try to like distinguish patterns. Like, okay, well, a blob that looks kind of like this is probably a warehouse. Blobs in this arrangement are probably residential houses. And they did that, and then they generated the buildings based on that AI extrapolation of the satellite maps. So it looks pretty good, but the point is they model the entire Earth uh, using, Bing Maps and AI and like some handcrafted stuff for like the more noticeable areas, like maybe like New York or Paris, stuff like that. And I would it would be my dream game to have something like that, except at the ground level, like a driving. Yeah, so something like a driving game, like The Crew, where you can just go anywhere. Now that is such a massive undertaking in terms of data, because everything looks pretty good in Microsoft Flight Simulator from what I've seen from the air. Once you get down to the ground level, it's very blobby and abstract and everything. But from the air, it looks great. And to get that extra amount of detail requires exponentially more work. But what I was thinking is that, this would be a perfect candidate, whether you're using AI or hand modeling or whatever, or laser scanning, driving around these areas, for an early access game that is perpetually developed. Because you know what? We don't need the entire Earth out the gate. Maybe you just get a city or two, or like some rural areas. And then you could have like subscription tiers, and or Patreon or something. And you get periodic updates where we added like 20 more square miles this month, or something like that. And you could kind of continually build upon that. And you could let your biggest patrons vote on like which area gets developed next. So like this month, like a whole lot of people wanted something like Munich to be like the next city that gets more attention. So fine, you focus on that next. And that's something you could do in steps. And man, I would love that. Like, yeah, I would, I don't know. I have like this sort of craving to just kind of like explore like all these areas. So I would love to see something like that just on the ground level. And like you can maybe add like a basic, you can maybe add some basic AI to like simulate traffic or pedestrians or something. Yeah, but the thing is, once you had your kind of framework established, you could go at it bite-sized and you just get done what you get done, and the people who are interested would probably help keep funding it just to get more of the planet seen. So this, I don't know that I really hope somebody has that kind of itch to do something like that, because I'm really interested in it. Yeah, again, you don't have to model the entire world in one go. You can do this in steps, and just the more progress you make, the better. Yeah. But yeah, because people were mentioning these areas that I haven't seen or haven't heard of. Well, that would be awesome if I could kind of take. And of course, I'd be obsessed with like wanting to use VR with this sort of thing. So it's like I actually do get to visit these areas and walk around. Yeah, I'm CIA says, best I can do is Dwarf Fortress. Yeah, well. Yeah, well, isn't that kind of the problem with Star Citizen? They're really ambitious, and they're just trying to have like all this stuff to it in one go, and that's turning out to be a very ambitious thing to do. So it's taking them forever to do it. Whereas just have some driving sim game, and yes, but I bet if you made it moddable too, you could have like all kinds of like you could have like a cult following to it. I think you could get continuous support in a way that like everybody wins. You just start off with like some rural or suburban and urban areas, and just kind of go with the flow with what gets developed next. I mean, you might never finish it, but then you could have like a dozen cities or rural areas or places you've never been that could look good, and you could explore. So yeah, I'm really having a hunger for like exploration games lately. I don't know. Okay, some more questions. Do you think there is free will, or everything is predetermined, or something in between? I don't want to give my full answer on this because I have a civil protection script ready to go on this, and if I ever get back to it, that's like the next big one I would want to do. And it'll address this question directly as part of the episode. Uh, I'll say that if it is predetermined, it feels so close to free will, it's not worth worrying about for me. So, but I could give more evidence to support. I could give more evidence to support my position, but I want to save that for the episode. If I haven't written that, I haven't written that one off. Like I still might want to make that one eventually. So, okay, Embracer's group acquisition of Eidos Montreal has recently brought the Eidos team the rights to work on Deus Ex and the Thief franchises again. Yeah, unfortunately, I still need to play through the Thief series. I know that's a real famous one. It's just that stealth has never been like my number one thing. So it's kind of always been like, well, I could play this or I could play a top-down shooter. It's like, I don't know, I'd rather do the shooter. So stealth keeps getting pushed back in the line for me, but I'll eventually play Thief, I think. But they're saying with Deus Ex, I think I answered this one before, but got votes, so I can answer it again. Do you think there exists a chance for a new title that takes an original direction, or perhaps an HD remake of the first game, as long as it sticks to the art story style and just refines the game mechanics, fixes the jank? Well, I mean, they'll do whatever they want, really, and I guess it's probably safer to do what. It's probably safer to just continue the Adam Jensen storyline or do a remake. But, I mean, I said before, like if I was in charge of Deus Ex, I would just say, you know what, we're just going to do either a reboot where we change things and come up with a new story, or else just a spirit. I guess you might be able to, see the problem, you might be able to pull off a side story, but the problem with the side stories is the Deus Ex games tend to be like real global in scope. Like they tend to have a big deal. To me, the only like really satisfying options would be to have like have a reboot. And when I say a reboot, I don't mean you're trying to follow everything that happened in the first one with the same characters and everything. I mean like a timeline reboot. You do whatever you want to have the same spirit and analysis of like world issues. I'm trying to predict the future that the original Deus Ex has. Have something in the spirit of Deus Ex that if you really like Deus Ex, you'll probably like this reboot, even if it doesn't have like the same characters or it is necessarily tied to the original, because the timeline really did get kind of like clamped down between Deus Ex and Invisible War and now Human Revolution, Mankind Divided. So that, yes, of course, you can have a story in between those, but the ramifications of what happened, especially in Deus Ex Original and Invisible War, are so huge, it like limits the scope of what you can do. Unless you're a really good writer and you can find these space in between the cracks of this whole other dynamic that was going on that somehow fits in neatly with the original story, which I think would be very difficult to do, then maybe you could do it. But to me, that would be too hard. I would just say like, all right, let's look at where we think society's going. Like let's really try to think ahead. Maybe like consult some futurist or science fiction writers or sociologists or historians, and like let's really try to paint a picture of where we think society is going, and then we'll like add in a lot of the cool stuff like in Deus Ex, like augmentations or like the mechs, that sort of thing, or maybe some other fun sci-fi element, and then we'll like try to stick to. I wouldn't even be as picky on the gameplay, but try and stick to something that like the Deus Ex fans are gonna like gameplay wise. like really have that RPG element and have some flexibility in the style that you play the game as, that sort of thing. And let's just come up with a new story and just not even worry about the old one. We'll still call it Deus Ex, whatever, like Deus Ex Reborn. And we're just gonna start fresh, because what happened in Deus Ex was too, it was, the scope was too huge. Like we can't pull that off within the same storyline. So, like I'm trying to think of like, I feel for certain this has been done before, but I'm running dry on an example where you just say this is a new storyline. It was the only way, you know, just, but yeah, that's what I would recommend doing, but that's probably not the safer option. Would probably be a reboot. I mean, I just said a reboot, a remake. I mean, there's certainly room for a remake, but it's like with a remake, I guess if you have the Deus Ex is one that probably actually really would benefit from it, because again, the mechanics really were janky in the original, and the graphics, I mean, they are, while I love the atmosphere to it, actually. I mean, well, I guess more with the lighting and the music. They are quite dated, so it's one that you really can see the difference on. However, it's like I already know how it goes, but I guess you have the argument that this could introduce a newer audience to it. Yeah, I guess that's the thing about remakes is you already know how it goes. I mean, I guess they have room to make a better ending for certainly, but yeah, okay, that's another option if you wanted to compromise between the two. You have a reboot and it's with J.C. Denton again, and you have all the same characters, but the story goes a different direction. Like you try to, like you could still have like some big things like the plague, but then it does not end the same way at all. And the dynamic, you could have some plot twists. So it's yeah, new timeline or something. I would be okay with that. So yeah, you could have a lot of the same areas and everything, but like we kind you could try to like, again, think to the future as far as you possibly can, and take your best guess on where you think society's going, and then try to have that reality be more of what's happening in the Deus Ex timeline or things. Because the other thing with the remake is sometimes you have to get like, it depends on how the rights are. Sometimes you can't have the original voice actors because it's too much of a mess with the original contracts or the music. And man, those are big shoes to fill with the original soundtrack to Deus Ex. But at the same time, I would love like a more expanded version of the original. Like, so if I'm exploring Paris or New York, it's a lot bigger, or I'm seeing more locations or something like that. I don't think you would like a Deus Ex remake because people hadn't focused on the same things you liked about it. So the remake probably won't follow that stuff. Yeah, I mean, I personally wouldn't have a huge issue if they really want to revamp the gameplay, like with the aiming and the movement and the combat. But yeah, I could. It's so easy to see like a giant studio missing the points of the original. That's obviously a big risk. So, I wasn't wowed by the writing in Human Revolution, and from what it's a good game. It's just that, man, you're trying to follow up Deus Ex though. It's yeah. I mean, if that was an standalone game, I would be so much lighter on it because my standards wouldn't be where they are, you know. But man, you're making a Deus Ex prequel. I mean, yeah, it's I'm all for it, but in order to, if you want to get the legendary status that the original Deus Ex has, then I think you really need to have a standard to your writing that very few video games do. Like, and like, I'm not sure the industry even knows how to do this, or a lot of the industry. Maybe some studios do. And you probably really need to listen to the player base as far as gameplay. Like, so it's, yeah, I don't know. It might be like trying to get lightning to strike twice. The same place twice, but. Okay. You mentioned that you hide old video chats. Did you know the August 2021 video is still visible? I did not, and I guess I'll fix this when I put the new chat up. By the way, you can still watch all of them. Like, there's a playlist on the YouTube channel, plus you can go to accursedfarms.com and click on video chats. They're all there. I just hide them to not clutter up the channel, so that if there's like a newcomer who hasn't seen my videos before, they don't see like Game Dungeon and then just like a bunch of video chats are like, okay, well, I don't care about watching this game guy chat. I want to watch the video on these games, you know? So the unlisted is a compromise. So you can watch and comment on any of them still. It's just for any newcomers to the channel, I want them to see stuff like Freeman's Mind or Game Dungeon or the side videos and stuff like that, and just have the most recent one up. So it's nothing's being deleted. It's just, you know, getting shoved into the next room. You know, shoved into the closet there. You can still open the closet if you want to go look at it. Let's see. Yeah, in fact, I'm kind of sloppy with, I make mistakes on YouTube sometimes because the last video chat, I put it up and then like sometimes I'm just not, I'm in like a mood where I just don't even want to look at the comments because I'm just thinking like, oh, I don't want to see all these, I don't want to get into like arguments right now. Not all the time, it just varies on my mood. But so I put off even looking at the comments for like a day. And then I went in and I was like, oh, wow, the views are really low on this one. I mean, that's okay. These are just the video chats. But I was wondering, and then I looked, I was like, oh, whoops. I only put it up unlisted. And the only people who could access it were people who, I think from Twitter and from the website. So it wasn't public on the main channel. So I was like, oops. And then I put it public and then it went normally. So, yeah, you shouldn't necessarily assume I know what I'm doing unless I explicitly say that, like, no, I really am trying to. And even then, it's not 100%, but it's probably like 98, 99% if I say I know what I'm doing. So, why don't you put up a Patreon that would allow us to give you money? This was one of the questions. Yeah, somebody replied below it. Just go to accursedfarms.com and there's a donation page. I may, maybe I'll set up the paperwork the paperwork and taxes get more complicated with Patreon. And by the time Patreon was like really kind of taking off, I already had the donation page in place already. I mean, maybe I could set it up. I don't. I don't even want to. I have to like figure out how this is going to work with my taxes since I'm in Poland, because just because I'm in Poland, I still have to file taxes in the US. And figuring out between the two, it's like figuring out tax code is like one of my least favorite things in the world. I mean, so it's kind of a mental block against it. Plus, it benefits me, put it like this, I get more of the money directly if you just go to accursedfarms.com and click on the donate button. So Patreon takes more of a bite out of it, but like if some people really want, like that's the only way they can do it, I mean, I considered setting that up. Plus, I think they're changing something with PayPal where it honestly confused me how it worked. So I'm hoping I don't get shut out, or people don't get shut out from it. But we'll see. Yeah, there's also the cryptocurrency stuff on the page too. It's not that I'm like a cryptocurrency like disciple and maniac about it. It's more like when I set up the donation page, people were offering to like donate crypto, and so I was thinking, sure, I'll accept money that may or may not end up being real. Why not? And it ended up being more real than not, I guess, for at this point in time. So I just kind of left it up there. But sure, I'll take it. And I can maybe set up another option later. But again, that's really the financial aspect of this is like, it's probably the most important, and it's like and it's probably the aspect I like, want to deal with the least. You know, I really meant what I said in the donation video. Yeah, if you haven't seen that, you can watch the Begathon. Just look up Begathon on the channel. I tried to make it as entertaining as I could and tried to explain all my thoughts on donations on that. But like in that, I said I'm really not a businessman at heart, and that's 100% true. It's like, it's just I deal with it. I deal with business and accounting in like the most bare bones minimal way I can. Would the world be better off if we took nonsense more seriously, or conversely, if we treated more serious things with humor? For the first one, I'd say probably not. The second one, maybe a little bit. This reminds me of I think there was a quote by Sun Tzu, kind of like that, where it's something like, oh, here, maybe I can get the exact quote here. Oh, come on. Yes, Sun Tzu has a lot of elegant quotes to it. And then ads blocking me from seeing the page. Oh, they don't. Boy, Google. Okay, let me try DuckDuckGo sometime. Yeah, I've been. Yeah, what's the recommended search engine nowadays? Since Google is just dropping the ball. Yeah, DuckDuckGo got it first hit, and like I couldn't find the first few hits on Google. Okay. Oh wait, no, it didn't. Okay, well, I can't find it, but the quote was something like, matters of grave importance should be treated lightly, and matters of small importance should be treated seriously. And I think the logic behind it was like the really big things are gonna happen one way or another, and there might be only so much you can do about it. So it's probably not worth overthinking too much. Maybe I'm interpreting this wrong. And maybe if somebody wants to figure out the real quote, I mean, it's translated obviously, but if somebody wants to figure out the real quote, they can put it in the chat. Yeah, no, that's the wrong quote. Somebody put in the chat. That's a different one. But it was, and like the logic was, or my interpretation of that was that really big things, they're gonna happen. There's gonna have all sorts of people looking at them and responding to them, and you can. It's probably not going to be too hard to figure out like the best way to navigate that, just because it's so big and affects so many people and people can look at it. But small things, people could easily overlook. uh, where, maybe there is something that could grow into a huge problem that's not being considered. So small things maybe deserve more of your attention. I know that quote was, yeah, but I'm like a bit flummoxed. I can't find the original quote. But that was my interpretation of it. It was sort of like doing the inverse of what you would expect. And maybe maybe I'm interpreting the message incorrectly too. So that's entirely possible when you talk about like broad. Well, the art of war is nothing but like a lot of generalizations. Well, some things are a little more specific, but the things that are more specific are usually things like combat with fire or like specific tactics or something. I don't know about making a better place. I think if you're just talking about like a simple things that would make the world a better place would be I guess accurate communication and honesty. That would probably do. I think that you'll lead to a lot better results with those two things. Because I think there's a whole lot of controversies that have neither of those. Yeah, like I think the internet can. Well, I don't know. I try to. I don't really spend much of my time on like internet drama, but from what I've heard, my wife likes to look at more of that than I do. From what I've heard, it sounds like a lot of internet drama or arguments, people will kind of make caricatures of the people they're arguing against, and then, like a straw man argument, where they're kind of misrepresenting what the person's saying, or like hyperfixating on one specific point that might not even be their core point, and just running with that, and everybody getting drawn into it. Whereas if I'm a big fan of like for arguments or just topics I don't necessarily understand, or I'm trying to understand different stances. I'm a big fan of steel manning arguments. That's where you try to look at your opponent's argument and you try your best to represent what they're saying. So even if you disagree with it completely, you just want to make sure you're on the same page with what they're saying. So that way, when you say that and they hear it and they can say, yes, that is what I think. Or they think, no, you got this part all wrong, So then, because you might not be arguing the same thing. And again, honesty, because there are bad actors. And look, that is always a huge warning sign for anything when you're discussing something important or like an argument, is if they don't respond, if you ask a direct question that's not like meant as a trap, because some questions can be where, but like there's like or they have framing that's dishonest. Like there's a classic example of like, oh, does your partner know that you, do people know that you beat your partner? And if you don't do that, then that's a dishonest framing because you're saying something that they don't do. So even if you answer yes, no, or maybe, that's all dishonest framing. But there can also be things where you have a real complicated issue and they're saying, does it do this, yes or no? And it's not a yes or no answer for what it's like. Well, yes, 87% of the time. No, 13% of the time under these conditions. It could be something like that. But anyway, the point I was getting at is if people are asked a direct question and they just dodge it, like they do not answer it, or they don't say, it's like, well, I'll give you an answer, but I have to explain this before I explain this answer because it's that complicated. Or sometimes it is just a yes or no, or yes under these conditions, no under these conditions. Those are all honest answers. But if they just try to change the subject or talk like they're not, talk like in answers that sound like they're addressing it, but they're really not, it's just sort of like kind of a platitude related to that, that's a huge warning sign as to how honest this person is, like, in my opinion. Yeah, people are saying, okay, loaded question. Yeah, loaded question. Yeah, assuming it's not a loaded question and the person is just legitimately trying to understand your stance or understand what you're saying, you know, it's, I mean, there can be exceptions, but even then, if you think they're doing that, you can address that head on. So I'm a fan of straight shooters with in terms of discussion. I'm for discussing things important. Obviously, if you're trying to have more of an artistic flair to what you're talking about, you know, getting to the point isn't always what you want, but or explaining clearly and honestly, you know. I mean, if it's like a puzzle or a riddle, or you are trying to get to like, you know, deep existential topics, then yeah, maybe not having it black and white and blunt. Maybe that's not what you want. But yeah, if you're talking about making the world a better place, I'd say honesty and like accurate communication are probably the best way to go. So. Oh, yeah. I'm CIA says, people think I'm dodging questions in the forums sometimes, but I'm just too lazy to respond. Easier to take the loss. Well, yeah, but then you could say that. You could say, like, answering like, I'm too lazy to answering this is going to take, like, a page of dialogue. I'm too lazy to just, you know. Okay. Can you recall any games that have introduced you to new styles or genres of music? Especially if you want to sort out more of that kind of music on your own. I'd say probably not for genres, except maybe bopping. Whatever kind of music that was, that avant-garde. I mean, I don't know if I really seeked out more of it, but I hadn't really heard music like boppins when I played it before, or else I wasn't very consciously aware of it. Because boppin's music's weird, but it's not like so weird that it's just like complete chaos. It does have a bit of a tune in there. It's odd. Yeah, I have heard of like new artists that way though. Like I mentioned Invisible War, I heard Kidney Thieves and I sought their music out. I like that band. Geez, there's another one. Did I write it down? Geez, there's another one I remembered. Well, I mean, I looked out Sonic Mayhem's music from Quake 3, but that wasn't as much. There's another one that was bugging me. I definitely looked into. Like I had it earlier, but then I lost it. Wasn't it rock? No, it might have been rock. Oh yeah, that was it. Okay. From the Borderlands intro video. That's where I heard. What was it? No Rest for the Wicked by Cagey Elephant. I did try to seek out more of their music after that. I didn't really like as much of their other music, but I really did like that song. You know. That one also has kind of a neat music video. Yeah. Ain't No Rest for the Wicked. I like that song a lot. That one, I guess I'm probably the odd man out that I missed that one prior to playing Borderlands. But somebody's saying Tangerine Dream. Yeah, I first heard of Tangerine Dream from the movie Legend, the fantasy movie. I think Tim Curry plays the devil, and that. Oh wait, is that Tangerine Dream? I think it is. Yeah, I've heard a lot more from movies, like especially ones that have like good soundtrack. Yeah, Tangerine Dream did the soundtrack to Legend. Have you thought about doing a game dungeon on Borderlands? Not really. I mean, this may seem like blasphemy, but I kind of gave up on Borderlands after a couple hours. It wasn't reeling me in. I mean, I love the intro video, but I mean, it's like the story was pretty minimal. Like the gameplay was like okay, but you know, the enemies definitely had some sponginess to them that usually doesn't win me over. Like I think I beat the first boss and I got a little bit past that and I just sort of gave up on it. I know some people really like that series, you know, more power to you if you do. It didn't quite click with me. I don't know. Yeah, somebody's saying I like Rage more and that game was meh. I feel like Rage was a little bit better than meh, but I feel like Rage was okay, and I did like Rage more, actually. But, guys, somebody's saying it's way better as a co-op game. Well, see, I'd probably play different games if I was playing co-op. I'd probably want to play something like Serious Sam for co-op. So something where it feels like it's us against an army. But yeah, that was the first I'd heard that song, and I like that song a lot. So, I'm sure there's some more, but I'm just kind of drawing a blank. Hey, next game dungeon has good music in it. I'll say that. Very good music, in my opinion. So, though it's more derivative than I realized, and that's gonna. Oh yeah, I remembered another music video that's pretty good and like definitely worth watching, but I'm not gonna say which one because it's gonna get an appearance in the next game dungeon because it's relevant to it, or relevant in my head. No, it is relevant. It is relevant. So yeah, the next game dungeon's soundtrack is more derivative than at least part of it's more derivative than I realized, and I only realized this now, like years after the fact. So. What is riding public transit like in Poland versus your experience of it in the United States? Do you have any nightmare bus riding stories? It's been pretty calm compared to the U.S. I mean, I probably rode the bus most in the United States when I was living in L.A. And there was most of the people on the bus in, I want to say most of the people on the bus in LA either look kind of depressed or else kind of crazy. It was like probably most of my stories were from LA. There was one guy that stood out that he was like it almost escalated into a fight. He was trying to get people to apologize, or white people apologize for what on behalf of black people. And it was kind of confusing. He was like a little not right in the head, but he was pretty aggressive. And like his friend next to them was saying like, you don't need to answer that. Like his friend was like trying to talk him down, get him to calm down. But he wasn't having it. And and at one point, it looking like this might actually escalate to something more aggressive. And then, like, another guy who was black next to him, like, it sounded like he was getting really annoyed by this and then started really arguing with him. And then it kind of was looking like it was going to escalate to a fight, like, right in front of me. Like, like, they were standing at that point. And then, like, his friend, like, finally got the first guy who was agitating things to just get off of the next stop before this kind of escalated beyond that. I saw a bus driver not exactly attack a bum who was sleeping on the seats, but he gave him a hard kick and was shouting at him to, like, not sleep on his bus and get off of there. It was more tense in L.A. And I remember waiting for a bus stop in L.A., there was a guy having an angry argument with an invisible person, like just like, no, you do not say that to me. So, like, you know, he just kind of needed mental. He just needed psychiatric help, really. I mean, and in Poland, Poland, the stories are lighter. On the bus, I remember one guy who was he was pretty drunk and he was just kind of drinking on the bus when it was pretty crowded. And you're not supposed to do that but I mean, it's not, I don't think it's like heavily enforced. But what cracked me up about that, so seeing some drunk guy, that wasn't that big a deal. I mean, he wasn't causing a scene. He was just, you could smell the alcohol on him and he was drinking his drink. But the part that cracked me up was there was this younger guy, maybe like early 20s, and he looked like Clark Kent, like real fit, like the Superman kind of a Superman build, and like the glasses like neatly trimmed and like a polo shirt. Like he looked like Clark Kent on there. And he saw the drunk guy, and the look on his face just cracked me up because it was just like this guy was just in shock. He's just like, oh my God, like like that kind of face. And that just cracked me up that he was like so in shock that this guy was like drinking on the bus. That stood out to me. So, I remember one of the more fun, it's just a minor story, but I remember on the bus, this was one time when I guess it was the tram, but same difference. There was one guy, the bus was like really crowded, or the tram was really crowded when I was going. And so everybody was just completely packed in. And I remember like seeing like there was a stop, and like people were getting on, like a couple people were getting off, but I could tell it was like kind of pretty packed. Like, and off to the side, I see like this old man, and he looks kind of frail, and I can see he's trying to get off, but things were so packed in, it looked like it wasn't going to. So what I did, it wasn't my stop, but what I did is it was so packed, there was this guy in front of me, and he had a backpack on, and he was taking some space. And what I did is I just put my hand underneath, like the hand was kind of buried so you couldn't see where it was coming from. And I just kept pushing his backpack more and more and more, and until he finally just staggered forward and like almost fell down into it. And then that created a path for the old man. The old man just kind of walked through there. And then the thing is, he turned back because he looked like he was like, like maybe wanted to have a go, and then like all he saw was like the frail old man, and the frail old man's just walking. So then he just looked really confused, like so, because he couldn't tell that I did it because I was too far back from pushing the guy, out of the way. But because like I didn't have the language to really tell him to like, can you please move? I mean, I could say "Shaprasham," which is excuse me, but I didn't. Like and plus it was kind of loud anyway. So it was, so I think the guy thought that like the old man did that, and this guy was frail, like he was probably in his 80s or something, like thin, so that confused him. It's just like, this guy pushed me, like, so, yeah, I just, because I just kept pushing him, basically, so. And then I remember on New Year's Eve, like we came back from watching a movie, like we went to the movies, we were on a tram, and I might have told this one before, and there was this guy, and he obviously had way too much to drink, and you could see he was trying hard not to throw up, but he didn't make it. And like, the tram kind of went around this curve, and like he was like right at the door, and it just like his hand was over his mouth, and no, he ended up puking a bunch, and everybody kind of gave him plenty of space. But it was just kind of funny just seeing somebody just really drunk. He was really trying not to throw up, but he didn't make it. So He just threw up on the tram. Let's see. I'm trying to remember if there's any other good well, I mentioned the one in the Puzzle Agent episode where I had the disapproving old lady staring at my shirt, and with the what was it? Harold? What was his name? Harold? Might have been Harold. Jared? I forget. It was something like that. Daryl. It was Daryl from Puzzle Agent with like with the disapproving look back at her until she finally lost that staring contest. Yeah, I guess nothing too wild. Let's see. Yeah, and in the game, it's just Daryl's upset that he ordered a pie and it hasn't come in yet. So. Okay, here, I saw this one ahead of time, so I made a list this time, so I'm better prepared. What are some possible recipients of the all-time favorite award, though we aren't likely to see anytime soon on a game? Well, I don't know. Maybe you will, maybe you won't see them, but I just made a list of, like, the all-time favorites I can think of. This does not mean that there aren't other really great games. It's just that they didn't hit me quite the same way. Like Supreme Commander, I like the experience of it. Dungeon Siege, that one's sort of on the edge there, but I really like Dungeon Siege. Super Metroid, Castlevania Symphony of the Night. I might say Castlevania Order of Ecclesia. That's the Nintendo DS one. I really like the atmosphere in that one. That one's just, they nailed the Castlevania feel in that. Subnautica, Tyrion, Phantasmagoria 2, System Shock 2, Silent Hill 2, Serious Sam 2. I had to really stop and think about it. Serious Sam 2, you know, that's not, these don't mean these are like the best games. It's just like the highs get so high for me. Like there are times when I'm playing Serious Sam 2, when I replayed it several months ago, that there are moments when I'm playing that I feel like this is the best game that's ever made. And I know it's not the case. And if I play more, then it just becomes more of a regular game. But there are moments like that in that game that I'm just like, this is just amazing, you know. I was really enjoying that Le Card Chronicles 2 game, even though it's a little harder than I like. That's the one I did on stream. I did play through that. Diablo, though I've kind of played it too much. Strife, and then I have several runner-ups, or they're like real close. Axiom Verge, Sanitarium, The Secret World. Because The Secret World's a mix, but man, I really like elements of that. In fact, I want to go replay part of that in VR. Space Quest, maybe The Dagger of Amun-Ra, I'm not sure. These are kind of the runner-ups. Serious Sam 4 I might put in the runner-up category because there's some really good moments, but it's like, I don't know for all of it. Painkiller, Gothic, Need for Speed 3. Actually, this one might be an all-time. Resident Evil 2. I still haven't played the remake, though, so the original. That one's way up there. That one feels like it's a real solid game experience. I'm sort of rating these by once I've played through it, how do I feel about what I just played? And if the feeling is just like, that was amazing, then that's sort of what gets onto my... oh yeah, They Are Billions. I forgot to mention that one. I think that one might make it to closer to the top tier. Legend of Kyrandia 1 and 2. Secret of Monkey Island. Oh yeah, somebody's saying Dex. I forgot to play Dex. I forgot to mention Dex. Yeah, that Dex might be like runner-up status. It's like really good. I don't know if it makes quite all-time favorite, but yeah, Subnautica for sure. Subnautica was solid. Oh yeah, Blasphemous. Blasphemous is another one that's like, it's on the border of all-time favorite. I'm not sure, even though I played it with cheats. When was the last time you read a comic? Well, for webcomics, probably a few days or a week ago, but for like a comic book, might have been years. No, I read Transmetropolitan like last year, I think. Yeah, so I was saying Need for Speed Porsche Unleashed. Maybe the gameplay. Need for Speed Porsche Unleashed for me, it's like all about the atmosphere. Like the gameplay, some people love it, but it's not really my favorite. Whereas running from the cops in Need for Speed 3, that was a really solid experience. But the Need for Porsche Unleashed, the atmosphere, yeah, killer. Nah, that's one of the best in the series for the atmosphere. Okay, somebody couldn't make it through Dungeon Siege. It's okay, I understand. The Dungeon Siege is one of those games where like the criticisms against it, I think, are all valid. It's just that I really like it. Uh, Although I think the one criticism I would push back on is not having saying it like needs teleporter points. No, I think it made it better not having teleporters. That it's just all one journey and you're on it. If you really have to go back, you can walk back. It does something to the game, I think, when it's like that. Someone's asking if I played any of the. Okay, I might start skipping more questions since we're onto the have you played this game question, but they're asking if I played a graphic adventure games made by Amanita Design. They've made Machinarium, Samarost, Botanicula, etc. I've played Samarost 1 and 2, and I don't think I've played the others. They were good games. It's just that I'm not like huge into like weird non-verbal games. I don't know. It's just not quite my thing, but it was very well done. I mean, it's not a knock against the game. It's just not quite. I have so many games to choose from. When I went, in order to make that all-time favorite list, I actually I might put Clive Barker's Undying as sort of a runner-up. That has really good moments. I went through my game collection, and which is it's organized a lot like the games list on the website. Just the game, the screenshot, and the genre, and the year, that sort of thing. And just looking through that, I'm seeing so many games I haven't gotten to yet. I'm just like, it just gets. I swear, every time I look through that list, it just gets me excited to like want to play more games, like every single time. Because just like, man, there is so much good-looking stuff here. So, let's see. If somebody's, what do I suppose is being extracted from the mind before it's shut down in Ravenholm? I mean, you imagine the Half-Life experts would know better. I would just guess coal. I mean, that's a real common thing to mine for. I mean, it's next to it seems like it's a bit close to a hydroelectric plant, to be realistic, but I guess you can sort of use your imagination as far as like the distance travel is farther than it looks in the game. Oh yeah, they're saying, yeah, Hinterland was a city management game for players bad at city management. Do you know of other crutch titles? In other words, if you're not good at the main thing, you can still make up for it in other ways. Yeah. Damn, I'm trying. There's like an obvious one that I forgot about. But I remembered another one, which is Carmageddon. If you do not have to be a good racer to beat Carmageddon. Like if you waste every other opponent, you don't have to finish the race. And the AI is terrible. Like so it's like they're not gonna go finish the race and make it so you can't finish the game. You in fact that's normally how I beat the game, is just waste every other racer. I know there was another one. though. To me, it was like an obvious choice, but now I'm forgetting. Okay, somebody's saying Noitas. They're all, if I'm pronouncing that right, one of their all-time favorites. Maybe I could look into that. Or so, what's the most recent AAA game that you liked? I would say, well, I'm really on a lag time now since I moved to the ultra wide because that upped the resolution, so it's making a lot of like real modern games just off the list. But I see I can't even run this at 60 frames a second now on this monitor, but I played it on my old monitor, which is at 1440, and that I'd say either Serious Sam 4 or maybe Mirror's Edge Catalyst. I enjoyed both of those a lot. There might be some more modern ones I could think of, but I probably haven't played them yet because they're too demanding. It's okay though. I don't have regrets going to the ultra wide. It's nice, the big ultra wide. But it does mean I am. It does mean I am playing older games on this. So no regrets. Yeah. Man, what was another crutch game? It's bugging me because I remembered it. I thought, oh, well, I'll remember this when I get to the video chat. Oh, I should remember Carmageddon because I would forget that one. Then I forgot the one I was going to remember. Yeah, I guess I'm drawing I've definitely seen some. Oh, well, I guess this wasn't what I was thinking of. I guess to a little bit, you have something like Deus Ex. Or maybe Fallout to some extent, where you can kind of, you don't have to take on direct combat the majority of the time. Or with Fallout, you can get a lot of there's probably other RPGs like that. You can get a lot of mileage from talking if you dump points into that. Or hiring helpers to do your fighting for you. I never really played it that way, but I know that you can do it like that. What are your thoughts on Brigador? It was okay. It had really cool atmosphere. It's one of those where, yeah, it had good music, good atmosphere. Gameplay was quite competent. It's just, I think I played through like a dozen levels or so, and just something about it didn't hook into me to make me want to keep going. I don't know. Look, I can afford to be picky now. Like it's favorite Pink Panther movie. It has been forever since I saw the Pink Panther movies. I don't even know if I saw all of them. However, one scene I remember is when his assistant, like, yeah, he's preparing for them. Like, he's preparing for, like, a surprise attack from his assistant. And he keeps, like, coming into a room or expecting him in a closet. He's not there. And then he finally goes, opens the refrigerator, and then he jumps out of the refrigerator. That's like almost, that and the main theme is almost all I remember about Pink Panther movies. So, I mean, I remember the music theme very well, but. Okay, so I should get more of the, I'll get to more live questions in a minute. Well, in a minute, figuratively. Okay, I'm skipping some because I don't necessarily have a great answer for it. I was saying in the Tyrion episode, you talk about some things you don't like of vertical shooters, like dying in one hit. I want to know some vertical shooters that stood out to you as interesting but not too difficult. Well, it's not a vertical. Okay, I haven't played. Well, they're saying I think you would appreciate Raiden. I've played Raiden. I guess I haven't played Strikers 1945. I don't know. A lot of them are just kind of okay, and I like them, but they don't like stand out to remember. Okay, I played one. This guy actually sent me a game code for it. I enjoyed it. Oh, am I forgetting the name? Okay, that's okay. I have my games list. I'll pull that up, and I'll figure out what the title is. It's like, I think it was something like The Quest for Revenge. Okay. Dreadstar, The Quest for Revenge. That one, boy, that one straddled the line between pissing me off to where I just want to quit versus, okay, no, I guess I can do it better. And like, I think I can handle that. I was just handling it wrong. And then I ended up beating it. And then once you get past a certain hump, the rest of the game is easier. I actually ended up beating the game on brutal. But it's like that first hump, it's like you get past like the first level or two and then it gets real hard, but then you can kind of like, it's like a bit roguelike where I think you can kind of get upgrades that make it easier. Once you get like a specific one, then it gets, then like the challenge level is like just right. But like prior to that point, but it had great aesthetics. It had a good story. You know, has multiple endings, and I felt proud. I think I was able to unlock an ending that there was no documentation on how to do it. So I thought, like, is this an extra ending? I bet maybe if I do it this way, and it was. I was able to figure it out. So it's not often I do that, figure out an alternate ending, which there was no way of me being able to do that. It's like, in fact, that's very rare. Although I remembered with Aida's Strange Christmas, I was able to figure out how to get the alternate ending. But yeah, that one was fun. I mean, it's kind of short, but they're talking about like it's kind of, they think the medium's kind of stale. Well, it's, that's not a problem for me as long as it's like competently done. That's the thing. If it's a game format I like, I'm fine if it's derivative as long as it's like well done, It's like, well, you can have a new story or new music and environments or something. And it doesn't have to be the game. The gameplay can just be competent and fun. I don't have a problem with that. I mean, some people, I think, they have to have something new in the gameplay in order for them to get into it. I'm not necessarily like that. I mean, new stuff can be good or might not. It just depends. But one mechanic I've seen that probably should be in a lot more games is having some advantage to not firing all the time. Where, like, let's say you're, because with a lot of vertical shooters, what you're doing is there is literally no reason to not have the fire button down at all times. Like there's a whole lot of them. It's like there's just zero reason not to. You might as well just tape it down. And that's kind of someone's saying limited bullets. I don't know about that. I don't think you want that at shoot 'em ups. But so that's kind of stale from a gameplay perspective. But one way I've seen of handling it is like you can, like maybe your shields recharge slowly if you're not firing. Or like with Tyrion, they had like the power generator element to it. So it's like you want to give yourself some reason to kind of like balance between like when to fire, when not to. But have some breathing room that if you're throwing like 30 things on the screen, you're going to be firing and not stopping. Like, so you kind of want those panic moments where you're like, oh God, do I have enough firepower to keep them back? And you're like afraid to stop firing. You want that, so you don't want to like rob the player of their ability to just keep on firing if they're scared of what's going to happen if they don't. But yeah, I think recharging your shields when you're not firing, or maybe recharging some other power up or element to it. I think that's a good mechanic. There's something to make it a little less mindless. For things I don't like, I mean, I can handle a little bit, but I don't like bullet hell really, when extreme bullet hell, unless there's some forgiveness to it. That's just like, if you have just like you have to be like just these pixel perfect movements where you're not even sure of exactly what they like. Maybe sometimes your hitbox is different than the sprite or whatever that you're seeing, and so you just have to know where it is. Look, I'm not on that level, so having some mercy for just normal players and not the people who are trying to go for like hardcore top score ultra mode. I mean, I'm fine if you want to cater to those players, but man, I really appreciate having having a difficulty mode that's just for normal players. Like you can dodge stuff, you can have a clue about how bosses work and where to fire and stuff, but you're not like a god at this stuff. Having like an easy mode or mercy mode where you can still get through the game. Maybe you just can't get through like the alternate ending or something where you need to be like a hardcore player. Difficulty for sane people, for normal players. A lot of vertical shooters don't have that. Some do, I think, especially more modern ones. But it's people mentioned good ones. I think I mentioned in the first episode. Jamestown's pretty good. I mean, it's just there's probably I'm slowly going through like a lot of top-down vertical shooters, partially because those are like the lowest hanging fruit for me to like. The learning curve to those is so small that I could just get in and start playing, and so that's if I don't have a lot of time, those are good picks for playing a new game. If I don't really have time for a learning curve. But shoot 'em ups with pacifist challenges would be neat. Yeah, that could be neat too. I mean, secrets and alternate routes are always a fun thing. Let's see. Yeah, I guess different ways of playing it, so you could. Yeah, well, Tyrion had a lot going for it. I mean, it's not a perfect game by any means, but there's a lot to learn from it, I think. Yeah. So that's what make it a little less mindless, not too mindless, and not. I guess don't overcorrect on that. Yeah, I saw some. Actually, one of the games I played, I think it's called like Zone of Lacrima. This is one of those I got in the bundle packs. And it was okay, but it had a mechanic I did not really like where, like, okay, most of these games, the way they work is, you can get an upgrade, your weapon, but if you get hit, then you lose your weapons. I kind of like Tyrion style better, where these are just straight up upgrades, and you have to kind of, I kind of like that, having them have more of like a strategy to it, like in between missions, where, that would be really cool. Like, lean in even harder on customizing your ship. Where like in between, so maybe you want like a really speedy ship, but then you can't hold as many weapons or something. Or you can have a slow bastard ship that has more armor, but then you're going to have a harder time dodging stuff. Or you could have other mechanics I'm not even thinking about, like maybe it's easier to grab power-ups or something. So having a lot of customization in your ship would be more fun, I think. But what this game did, and it's certainly creative, but I didn't like it, was when you get it's like when you kill so many enemies, I think that automatically upgrades your weapons. And then if you kill more, that upgrades your weapons more. Now that's fine, except it was on a timer. So let's say you've upgraded to like triple shot or something. If you don't kill enough enemies within like 10 seconds or something, you're gonna lose that and it's gonna downgrade to double shot. Or they might downgrade again. So it's like, I don't like that because I feel like the game's rushing me. And that kind of split my attention too much because like there was stuff I needed to dodge in that. There was a lot of stuff I needed to dodge in that game. So if I'm really focused on dodging, then I can't really be focused too much on eliminating every single enemy at the same time, or at least me personally. So I didn't really like having to split my attention like that. So it would. So I mean, some games they do have that. Like I think in Diablo 2, I think the assassin class was sort of like that, where you built up charges or something. Path of Exile definitely has that element in there if you want it. I don't like stuff the goal is to like rush as fast as possible, unless it's something like racing, because then the whole point is race, go as fast as possible and dodge and maneuver. Okay, my brain can handle that, but if you're introducing these other mechanics, maybe I see something cool and I want to slow down. So I didn't like the gameplay, the big gameplay advantage tied to that. So. Uh, Let's see. Okay, so a few more questions, and I'll take the live ones. Do you think you could or would ever collaborate with Civi 11? I mean, I suppose it's possible. I guess we just would want to make sure it like fits well and doesn't feel like it's too too kind of forced in there. Yeah, that might work for a co-op game, maybe. Actually, a game I gave up on pretty quickly. However, I want to watch a playthrough of it. I plan to. Was it was a vertical shooter, The Texorcist. That feels like a game that was just made for co-op, because the way it works is it's kind of bullet hell-ish, or maybe it's very bullet hell-ish. I didn't get very far into it, and it's a typing game. So basically, in order to do damage to the enemy, you have to type out sentences. But you also, and I'm someone who can touch type, I can handle this, but you also have to navigate with that. And so they're throwing all these bullets at you at the same time. So it's like, if you need to fire, you need to be typing. If you need to dodge, then you need to be using the arrow keys or a gamepad or something. And you really need to be doing both at the same time. So that would be perfect for a co-op game where you have one person who's your typist and the other person has like a gamepad or something that's dodging the bullets for you. So it would, like what? It would be perfect for two people, but it just felt like way too much for me to juggle as one person. So. But yeah, I feel like I could handle either element competently, but not at the same time. Like, I can be a relatively fast typist, and I can handle basic bullet hell, not advanced bullet hell, but yeah, but that seemed like a game that was just made for co-op. Okay, a few more questions. Have you ever been to Austria? No, but that would probably be a pretty amazing place to visit. Oh, and I remember, I meant to put this on Twitter. Somebody asked before about like my dream house or location. I still don't have a great answer, but I saw a picture that looked like, this looks like my dream location or something, or certainly one interpretation of it. It was like this, okay, I don't have time to dig up the link right now, but I'll put it in the YouTube description. It's a fictional place. It was like on DeviantArt, but I looked at this. I was thinking, yeah, I would enjoy living in a place like this. So it was like kind of these forested mountains that were kind of tiered, and they had like these castles on different tiers. It looked awesome. So, okay, I'm skipping some more questions now for time. What kind of service is a must for you to settle at a specific location? I mean, obviously I can adapt to whatever, or try my best to adapt to whatever life throws at me, but if I have any choice at all, these would be my minimums. Yeah, I guess walking or bicycling distance to some sort of grocery, electricity and plumbing, internet, non-metered internet that's faster than dial-up, I guess. Like, I can deal with like internet that's not that fast, but like faster than dial-up. Dial-up's rough. And metering. I've never had to have metered internet, but I wouldn't even want to think about it. Like it's not even that I use that much internet most months, but some months I do. Like it's like when I did my abandonware spree, I used a whole lot of internet then. Or if I'm getting watching more videos that month, or sometimes games are just huge, you know? So, oh yeah, enough sound isolation that I could do something like Freeman's Mine without disturbing people. And forest, access to forests. I missed, when I didn't have that, I really missed it. And here I'm going there literally every day, just about. So some part of my brain wants forest. Yeah, and I guess that sort of doubles as a place to exercise, you know. And I think those are the main things. And not being overrun by mold. Let's see. What is your most favorite time of the year, and conversely, your least favorite time of the year? I'm not even sure, but about favorite. I guess when I have more free. I guess the fall when I have free time, but I haven't had a lot of free time in the fall for many years now. Whatever the hottest point at summer is massively moving up to my least favorite. Because, like, I was not kidding. I was sweating doing the Conquest Earth lines because it was just so hot when I was doing it. Okay, I'm skipping some more stuff. Wow, I didn't see this one. How would you deal with a Fraggle infestation? Poison their doozer slaves? You know, I'm less familiar. I only watched a little bit of Fraggle Rock as a kid, so I'm less familiar with the lore. Like if it was like it depends on how bad it is. Like if there's no, like if it's not causing problems with the air quality or the structural foundation of the building, or if they're not too loud or the wrong times, then I might just be all right with cohabitation. But if it's like a problem I can't deal with, I would try diplomacy first. Like explain what's the problem, see if they can fix it. If they can't, then I might explain they have to move. Maybe I could give them a hand with like moving. If there's just no possibility of diplomacy, then I guess get a fumigator. I don't know. But I mean, I would save that as the. I would save that as like the final option. You know, I wouldn't want genocide of the Fraggles. Like I would try to exhaust all other options. Somebody's saying, don't I have air conditioning? Nope. And I can't really add it due to how windows work in Poland, or a lot of Europe actually. You can't just open a window and put air conditioner in. They all swing out, so they're just not designed for, and they're big too. They're just not designed for air conditioning. I would have to totally change what type of window type, and I'm renting an apartment. I don't really have, I don't really have the authority to just modify it. And if I'm spending a lot on modifying the window, I'd kind of want it to be in a place I own. Yeah, verdict is still out as to whether I'll ever own a home or not. I mean, I'd like to, but I figure with housing prices, they'll either just sort of go up forever, or there'll be a crash at some point, and maybe I can afford something then. I don't know. Let's see. Okay. Well, this is a good question, but I didn't get many votes, and it's kind of a longer one. And I'm getting hungry, so I'm sorry. I'm going to skip it. They're asking what I meant about giving humanity a fighting chance. I'd say it would. the short answer would be I would focus on like basic needs for humanity in the long term. In the Trackmania episode, I was talking about being a billionaire. If you guys want a longer answer, you can vote that one up more next time. But yeah, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, trying to solve the basic needs in the long term. Okay. So I was asking if I'm political. I mean, yes and no. I feel like, okay, real quick, I'll just say you're unlikely to find someone more cynical on politics than I am. Like, it's very low of just about like everything involved with it. And I think I'm thinking more of U.S. politics, but like I think our system is either calcified and or corrupted to the point where we can't deal with our most serious problems. And that's not good. So I'll just leave it at that. Let's see. I still need to see the Stalker film. Somebody's asking about that. In the Cave World, you mentioned the old PC adventure games usually have good endings. What's a good example of adventure game with a good ending? Well, a lot of LucasArts or Sierra ones. Like I mentioned, The Secret of Monkey Island, Dagger of Amon-Ra, King's Quest games have good endings. Space Quest games have good endings. What are some other ones? Well, I like Puzzle Agents. I can understand people are unsatisfied with it, but I like Puzzle Agents ending. Let's see. What are some others? Well, Legend of Kyrandia, the games have good endings. Yeah, a lot of adventure games have good endings, where you feel like you got a conclusion, and like you get to see like the aftermath. Like you get your falling action. You know the normal story arc. Exposition, rising action, climax, falling action. You get your falling action from a lot of adventure games where you get to see the aftermath and how things are better or concluded or that sort of thing. And then, oh, that was the one with the crutch answer. Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis. That was another, well, that has a good ending also. But yeah, like I think in that game, like, you defeat the Nazis, you resolve the issue, you resolve the issue with Atlantis, and then like you're back on the U-boat, and like you watch the sun go down as like the credits roll and the music's playing. It's a nice ending. Like it's just, but that's another game that gives you kind of a crutch. If you're not as good at adventure games, you can play with it more action oriented in that game. Which I did the first time by accident. I didn't even realize that was a choice that you had when you played the game. I was just being like, I'll solve it with my fist. I was just being like kind of snarky with the dialogue. It turns out that determined a whole huge portion of the game, and that probably wasn't the best option to pick. The best one is probably more with the heroine with you, because you get more interaction and more of the story that way. But yeah, all kinds of adventure games have good endings. I mean, it's just, you have nice music at the end with the credits, and you get to see the conclusion, and the characters have some things to say. Sometimes they draw it out even more. I mean, I don't know. I appreciate that. I appreciate all those touches in the ending. So something that feels like you did it. You beat the game. Like, it's like that. Now you could sit back and relax and watch things play out. That's what I like from endings. It doesn't have to be a happy ending either. It's just you feel like something really happened. Okay. A few more answers. Actually, hold on. Let me go reply to something quick. Just a second. Okay. Which game do you think has the best lyrical theme? Oh, I didn't see that answer. Well, okay, I should have a disclaimer that I haven't played Parappa the Rapper, so that I imagine that one's up there. Okay, I'm just gonna try and think quick off the top of my head. I like the lyrics to the Grand Theft Auto song, but I think might be able to do better. Let's see. Ross went to University of Pittsburgh. No, I don't think so. I went to... No, I didn't. But I did go to school in Pittsburgh, but I wasn't the University of Pittsburgh. What is... Okay, song lyrics. Chat, help me out with the song lyrics. Best lyrical theme for in a game. Because my instincts are telling me there's one out there that that's pretty good that I'm not thinking of. But I mean, maybe we will just go with the Grand Theft, the Donkey Kong rap. Okay, that one's not a bad candidate, and I actually saw a really funny spoof on that. Let me write this down. That by was it Joel Haverson? He makes a lot of surreal comedy shorts that are pretty good. Okay, somebody's saying Portal. It's not really my kind of. It's well done, but it's not my kind of music for the Portal. I guess that was Portal 2. Yeah, Portal 2 that they did the song. Okay, I haven't played Metal Gear Rising. I haven't played Rez, actually. Do you think you're going to play Deus Ex Mankind Divided to complete the series? I think, actually, I might when I'm just really... I'm probably not going to be that invested in the story, but just when I really want like a sci-fi atmosphere game and that kind of gameplay. But that's 100% a game I'm going to need an upgrade for on this monitor, because that one was kind of demanding even when it came out. Yeah. Okay, somebody's saying Serious Sam 3's Hero was so dumb and cheesy, it put a smile on my face. I don't even remember the music to 3. Like I remember some other. I feel like First Encounter, Second Encounter, and 2 all had like the best music out of the Serious Sam series. Like I'm struggling. Okay, I guess 4 had like an okay. I mean, they're not awful. It's just that they're just not as memorable as some of the tracks. I like the France theme in 4. Dun, 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 dun. But I think that's like the only one that stood out to me for like 4 and 3. I don't even remember 3s. Man, this is bugging me on the lyrics question. Okay, so I'm just gonna go with Grand Theft Auto for now. Uptown, downtown, speeding on the ground. The naked 27 got the power in his mouth to move any mother that gets in the way. You know, I feel like you want one that's like really spitting lyrics. Okay, again, not my favorite, but it is good. Plants vs. Zombies. That one has like catchy lyrics. And again, I think I mentioned, I haven't played it either, but in Warframe, that I don't even know the name of it. It was like, I think with the Venus expansion where they're doing like this sort of chain gang like with the robots. That one also had catchy lyrics. Oh yeah, 3 had the Born to Be Wild parody, except that it wasn't very good. It was just, it was just making me think Born to Be Wild is the better song. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's like budget Born to Be Wild in 3 and 4. Okay, somebody's saying Donkey Kong rap is definitely the best. I will link to a fantastic Donkey Kong rap video in the description. I'm keeping some notes here. Okay, I'm getting to the end, so I'm going to look through these questions, see if I want to answer them. Go ahead, type questions in the chat, then I'll get to a few of them while I read the other questions. Yeah, and for people asking about like the collaborations, I tend to assume YouTubers are very busy because I tend to be very busy. So I don't really push it unless I feel like something fantastic would come out of it. So I'm afraid I don't watch MMA, but I mean, there's only so many hours in the day. If I was sitting around and MMA was going on, then sure I would watch it. But it's just I'd rather watch like a highlights thing from it. Somebody's asking about covered Dungeon Lords. Maybe that's another one I kind of gave up on. But that music theme, that music theme was perfect when I used it in The Chosen. It had the drama. Actually, is that the only music theme in the game? I can't remember. I remember a lot of Dungeon Lords being silent. And do I have any interest in doing more streams of games in the future? Yeah, maybe. It's just time allocation. Unfortunately, streaming is one of the first things I jettison. Have you heard of Half-Life 2 VR? Yes, in fact, you could do Half-Life 2 VR years ago, but I think they pulled it, and I guess it's come back. And then people made mods, and I think now it's maybe back officially or a more polished way. But would you consider going to fan conventions if you were invited to attend, including different cities, countries, continents? Yes, though that is contingent on like how my wife would feel about it, because I mean, I think it might be fun, but it's not like something I'm like dying to do. Whereas, you know, if she has a lot of anxieties about it, then like I have to take that into account. I'm not trying to like blame this on her or anything. Like she doesn't hold me back in things I really want to do. It's just that's something she would want to go with me, and so it's kind of like team effort, you know. Do you think you'll ever stream to add money as fuel? Probably not, but I mean, I guess it's a possibility. I feel like I'd be kind of doing a disservice to both you guys and me if I did a lot of streaming as opposed to something like making the movie. I feel like I'm not living up to my potential then. Whereas some people, I think my wife would be a better streamer than I would. Like her reactions when like things go wrong in the game or she has surprises, I think they would be so much more entertaining than me. Whereas I'm just kind of like, oh, whoa, you know. She's like, oh my god, like, and they're completely genuine with her. I think she'd be much better of a natural streamer. Yeah, it doesn't mean if you're a streamer you're not living up to your potential. It means that some people are better at it. Whereas I think I'd be better at just making a movie or like a comedy video, that sort of thing. So I have not heard of Bionic Age. Let's see. I have not played Deponia. I mean, maybe I will eventually. Like the pitch on it and the art style didn't quite grab me compared to others I want to play. Like I think one I'm trying to get finished was like Whispers of a Machine. It's like you're a detective in like this kind of futuristic society area. And there's some other adventure games. I want to play the Space Quest 2 VGA fan remake I guess remake. That one's high up there for games. I want to play through the Quest of Glory games. I never got through those. So. So Deponia is lower on the list. Sorry. Shadow the Hedgehog's theme song for lyrical. Yeah, maybe. Well, I like like in Sonic Hero. No, okay. I didn't really like a lot of the music in the Adventure series, though I did like that theme where you're racing against Shadow, if that's the one you mean. I couldn't even make out the lyrics in that. But yeah, that one was dope. I mentioned that. But in Sonic and Heroes, the This Machine, that part was pretty good. And your Jeep ending to Freeman's mind, if you imagine what a follow-up story would be for that timeline, no, I haven't. But I mean, obviously he would be more ground zero for the invasion. So who knows how that would play out with Freeman. He would probably go, I think Freeman would probably go more survivalist. Like he might, like I think he would try to stay out of it and just kind of defend himself. He's more self-centered, the version I've made of him. Have you ever given the Marathon series a glance? Yeah, I tried playing the first one. I couldn't really, the maze-like aspect, I don't miss that at all from like older first-person shooters, the maze-like design. So I sort of gave up on it. It has good music though. The story has to be one of the craziest I've ever seen put into a game. Well, maybe you have to watch a playthrough then. Yeah, I had a cameo in Mandalore's video. He reached out to me asking if I wanted to add something to it. He was trying to get a collaboration of several people, so I just tried to throw something quick. I actually haven't played through Marathon Infinity, so. Do you or have you used the Vivaldi browser? Yeah, a little bit, and I actually might use a lot more of it in the future because apparently I've been using Firefox, and I turned off some updates because they were bugging me about it like every other day, or it felt like. So it's like, come on, give me a break. So I wasn't against updating it, but I mean, I wasn't as paranoid about it as Windows. Windows is next level for things you have to be careful of. But then I read this article about like why Firefox is no longer good. There are going to be a ton of links in the description this time. Okay. And they made some compelling reasons. And it was, it sounded like you had to jump through all these hoops to like disable this unwanted telemetry and like other aspects of it. And it reminded me of like having to like kind of decrapify some of Windows 10. And I'm thinking, do I even want to deal with this? So maybe I'll make the switch to Vivaldi later because it's one of the rare browsers that lets me remove that close button on the tab so I can just middle click. Because I never use the close button. All I ever do is hit it by accident. So yeah, maybe, and I think Vivaldi is like really customizable to the point where I might have to like learn some things to deal with it. But yeah, Vivaldi is like number one for my, if I switch from Firefox, that's probably what I'll use. Okay, I should scroll up a bit. What are your thoughts on preserving custom maps in games such as TF2 or Gmod? Yeah, I mean, you should do it if you're interested. It's my same attitude towards things towards preservation in general. Like, people should not be blocked from doing it. And if it's one I'm interested in, I'm thankful for people who are a little more thorough or obsessive about this thing than I am. Like, I've kept a few maps that I sometimes use for like civil protection. I've kept all of them, but like sometimes like the backdrop maps for when I use for green screen, I've kept some of those. But yeah, like Games Banana, or I always forget if it's Games Banana or Game Banana. They're pretty good about that sort of thing. I mean, for having a huge archive of them. Yeah, just don't stop people from being able to back them up. That's what I care about. Yeah. And I'm thankful for people who do make the effort to back up all the good ones. Okay, just a few more questions. What are your thoughts on liminal space horror? it can be pretty cool. I guess I'm not really into like really non-verbal stuff. So I like some anchoring in reality. Yeah, like my wife sent me links to the back rooms, so I watched a few videos of those. So if it was something like you're talking to normal people before your expedition, and then like you go in, then it gets really weird, and then you might be kind of lost for a while, but then you can kind of hit like a safe point where you can kind of check back in base before the story advances more. I like that style so much more than just all surreal weird stuff. So I really do appreciate like some anchoring of reality to kind of pace it, and have a breather from the weirdness from it. To me, that makes a huge difference. So. Yeah, somebody's saying What I'm Made Of from Sonic Heroes, great final boss song. I think I might have mentioned this. I loved like the first 10 seconds of it, and then I didn't really care for it as much. I mean, maybe it was just the lyrics, but like the musically, it was like da 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 da. Like I love that theme with the rock guitar. That sounded great. So it was, yeah, but then I didn't really like the lyrics and the singing after that. So I can be picky, but. Oh, and if you're a Sonic fan, Sonic is getting another cameo in the next episode because it is highly relevant. So you can, it's not a Sonic game though. I mean, the next episode. Just because the cult of Sonic is real, so I figure I'll throw them a bone when I can, you know. Have I played Entropy 02? No, I haven't. I'm not. If that game is not on the list, then I'm not sure which game it is. It could be where I just don't. Oh, that's like, yeah, I heard of that one. That was like a Half-Life 2 mod where you play the Combine, and apparently it's really good, but you'll have to forgive me if I'm not in a rush to play new Half-Life 2 stuff. That part of my brain is just burned out. Like, it's just like, it's just, it fried. So I probably wouldn't get the same level of enjoyment out of it as maybe any other game. It doesn't mean Half-Life is bad, but when is the next episode? As soon as I get it made. I mean, I don't hold, I'm not promising when. I feel like I can get the next episode out this month, but yeah, we'll leave it at that. I feel like I can. That's a completely honest statement that I won't have to double back on. I feel so stupid. The last one I said this month I just couldn't make it. Although I didn't cut my sleep last month, so there's that. Oh yeah, okay, I'll mention this. Now that the Steam Deck is making developers port their games to Linux more and more, is switching in the near future a good idea? Okay, you know what? For Linux, this is going to come out in a future video, but I can 100% say it depends. Like that is my answer. That is like a go-to answer for Linux. Like, oh, should I use Linux for this or can I make the switch? It depends. Like I'm gonna give a much bigger Linux video later. That I plan to make that part of the countdown videos, the Linux videos. So, somebody's asking a question I already answered towards the start. So it's a good place to quit. However, one thing more mentioned, the Steam Deck thing made me think of it. Apparently there's a leak, I think it was called like the Steam Deckard, where Valve is working on a new VR headset. And what excited me about it is apparently they are the second people to work on a wide field of view besides after Pimax for consumers. There have been other like stupid expensive ones that have had a wide field of view, but for consumers, Pimax has been the only game in town for a wide field of view. And when I use VR, that is like the #1 thing I wanted more of. I wanted just more of a wider field of view. So I think they're gonna aim for like 140 degrees. So that's not as much as Pimax, but Pimax, I'm keeping my fingers crossed on Pimax, and if it's really good, I plan to get one. Like with the 12K, or they're gonna have some offshoots of it that might be cheaper, that maybe they'll, with like less features that I may not be interested in. But I'm so happy there's gonna be a backup for wide field of view, because Valve's much more likely to have higher quality control than Pimax will. Pimax, I feel like anything could happen. Like they could release this and it could be the one for me, or it could have a lot of issues that it's just like, oh man, I don't know if I can buy it when it has this many issues, or it could have just a few issues on things I don't care about. So anything could happen. All right, that's it. Yeah, I'm gonna go eat. So thanks for showing up, and videos are coming, and next one's gonna be next game dungeon is gonna be a contrast. It's gonna be a good game with good music, and it's gonna have a bonus and some some stuff we're talking about, I think. Okay, and Freeman's Mind whenever I can get it out. It's been a little slower because I didn't want to like force it if like the lines weren't too good, and I had a little bit of a block on some of it, but I have some ideas. All right, I'll see you.